So before I get into this video, I just want to let you guys know about the rules for this challenge, as I did have to limit myself on some of the maps because I was limited to 4 months for this challenge just before the release of Black Ops 6. And so just to make sure that I got the challenge done in time, I limited myself to maps that took 12 hours or less, with the exception of Black Ops 3 Nacht. And in order to just kind of get the hype around round-based again, I excluded any objective-based maps like Outbreak from Cold War or Duran Fang from Vanguard. I also class Dead Ops Arcade as its own kind of separate mode, so I also didn't include that. With that being said though, there were still 58 maps that I had to get to round 100 on, which is still a hell of a lot of maps to play. Also, for this specific game, I would not be using any Mega Gobblegums. It would only be limited to classics to give me the full kind of experience of the game, like no pay to win stuff at all, just the baseline kind of game that you get to play. So with that out of the way, I hope you guys enjoy the video. Black Ops 3 Zombies is probably regarded as the best overall zombies experience, with pretty much every part of the community enjoying at least some aspect of the game. Whether you're playing just for a quick match, for a first room, for an Easter egg speedrun, or even just for high rounds, honestly this game has it all. And the very first map that I get to indulge in when playing this game is Shadows of Evil. And I have to say, even before playing this, since I'd just gotten off of Advanced Warfare, I was super excited to play Black Ops 3. And knowing that I was starting on Shadows was just even better, because in my opinion Shadows is one of the best maps on this game. And the aesthetic for this map is just absolutely incredible. I fully love it. So things would start off a little bit differently this time compared to all the other maps that I've done so far. As instead of staying in the spawn room until like round 3 or 4 or something, I would only stay in there for the very first round. And this is actually because of a fairly recent change in the strategy of this map. Because if some of you might be aware, the original strategy for this map would be to train or camp around the waterfront area with the gate closed, because you would take the tram around the back side of the area. And you would basically use the upgraded sword and the Apothecan's Servant, and then hoard up using Blast Furnace to kill the zombies after you get the hoard up. And it was honestly a really super fun strategy. And unfortunately, this new strategy isn't really as fun, but it is actually faster. So to start this strategy, you'll want to keep the first door closed and use the beast mode in order to open up these stairs. You can actually jump on the car here and sprint jump over to land on top of like an invisible barrier on top of the closed off stairs in order to shock the gate open. You can also just jump in the first room to shock the gate open. But I would also sometimes run all the way over to Stamina Up and the part for the ritual in the spawn area. Then after I'm out of beast mode, I would finish round 1 and then run all the way over down into the second area. And this is where you have to be quite careful, because if you move anywhere behind like this area where the lamppost is, you'll actually hit something called a death barrier, which will instantly end your game. However, there are ways to avoid the death barrier. One of the ways, which is the way I didn't do it, is like every 3 seconds, starting from something like 58 or like 1 minute and 1 second, you have a 3-second grace period where you can actually run and open up another gate, so the waterfront gate for example, and then you won't be hit with the death barrier. Now I did try this a couple of times and I failed on every single time, so I just decided to do it the safe way, which is opening up the gate to the canal behind me and then taking the tram to open up the other doors that way. But I would pretty much just stay in this second area behind the lamppost, obviously, to not hit any death barriers. And I would stay here until about round 5 or round 6, depending on when my bugs were. And then I would open up to the canal area. Oh, and once again, the Black Ops 3 high round community actually allows the first box patch. So I did use the first box patch in order to play these games, because there's just no point in like restarting, especially when the community has agreed upon rules. So out of the first box, you are guaranteed to get the Haymaker and Little Arnie's, and I believe that's it. I would also hit the box again for the HVK. Obviously, if this isn't the case and there is another weapon that's guaranteed, let me know in the comments, because I'm not too sure. But the reason Little Arnie's are quite useful is for luring the Margwa away in the later rounds in order to be able to kill him. But anyway, in this first match, I would be pretty much going around the map and activating everything I would need in order to unlock Pack-a-Punch. So in this case, on round 8, I was going around and doing the canal area. And I would go ahead and do the ritual and open up the door below for the rift. And perks wise, I would be running Quick Revive, Juggernog, Double Tap, and Stamina Up. But once I'd cleared round 8, I would be going around the top part of the canal district, and I would be buying Double Tap, getting the shield part, and also getting the fuse. At this point, I had to wait for the tram to get to the canal area, and then I would be making my way through to Waterfront. And since I was taking the tram to all of these places, I wouldn't need to do the little shortcuts, like jumping up in order to see where the symbols are, and like get into all these different places. And I could just go on the tram and get the symbols that way for the sword. So as I was traveling around, I'd be writing down the sword symbols, and once I got to Waterfront, I would open up, grab Juggernog after I switch it on in beast mode. Also, while in beast mode, get the ritual part, open up the ritual door, or sorry, the rift door, and open up the area in order to go into the ritual itself. I'd also be grabbing the shield part in this area and the fuse once more. So once I'd done the ritual in the Waterfront area, I would then clear out the rest of the round and then take the tram in order to find out what my final symbol was as I make my way to the Footlight District. And once again, when I'm there, I would go into beast mode and unlock everything I need to, which also includes, because I forgot to mention earlier, all of the egg locations where you put the egg in order to get the sword. But once I'd done the Footlight District ritual, I would then open up the gate and then wait in the second area next to Stamina Up to end the round. This is because, as you might have noticed, I haven't yet done the ritual in the spawn room area. And obviously, I can't really get to it in the traditional way by just opening the door, because the whole point of running this strat is you have to keep the spawn door closed. So the only way to make it back up into that room is I pretty much have to end the round and then go into beast mode while I'm looking at Stamina Up. Then as I'm coming out of beast mode, I then need to be holding my grapple button and then constantly switch weapons as I'm grappling in order to make it up into the area where I need to do the final ritual. And this tech was found by Easter egg speedrunners. I don't know exactly who found it first, but I know that it was found by at least an Easter egg speedrunner. And it's called the Human Grapple, and it's a really, really cool piece of tech. And if you watch Easter egg speedruns, you'll see them do this all the time. But something important to note is that you're gonna want no zombies around you when you do this. And this is because if you do have zombies around you, they have a chance to actually grapple onto the zombie instead of the grappling hook that's to Nero's area. And just in case there's people wondering why it's called the Human Grapple, it's because you've exited beast mode, which means you're now just in your regular character form, and you're basically grappling when you're as that character rather than the beast. At least I think that's why it's called the Human Grapple. But anyway, I would be doing this final ritual on round 14 here, and at this point I would Pack-a-Punch the L-Car and the Haymaker. The Haymaker would just be temporary at this point in order to help me deal with Margwas and just zombies in general, and this would be until I managed to get all of the parts for the Apothicon Servant. At which point, I would have only had one part for the Apothicon Servant, which would be the Margwa Heart. I wouldn't actually have all of the other parts for it. And the main thing I was looking for at this point would be a Blast Furnace on my L-Car. Because although Deadwire is actually a better AAT overall, it doesn't actually charge up the sword, whereas Blast Furnace does. And speaking of the sword, once I'd finally gotten Blast Furnace on my L-Car, I would then basically be making my way to all of the egg locations. So I would start off in the Rift location, and then make my way through to the Footlight area. Once I was done at the Footlight district, I would then make my way through to the Canal. And then after I was done with Canals, I would make my way through to Waterfront. And then I would have all the souls I would need in order to get the non-upgraded version of the sword. So at this point I would be making my way around the map, looking for purple pods, and also just waiting for the bugs to drop their part for the Apothicon Servant. And on round 21 I was fortunate enough to get all of the parts, and so I built the Apothicon Servant round 21 at the Waterfront area. And also earlier on I'd actually placed the fuses in the fuse box in the Undercroft area, and I would also be building the shield in the Canal area. And at this point, it might be surprising to you guys, but I was fully set up. And this is because for this strategy, you want the non-upgraded sword rather than the upgraded version of the sword. And the reason for this is the upgraded version of the sword doesn't actually kill the zombies down at this bottom spawn over here by the truck until they've actually jumped all the way up, whereas the non-upgraded version of the sword, the slam for it, will actually kill them when they're down there. And this just means that the non-upgraded version of the sword is just faster for killing. And so pretty much all the strategy is using the sword when it's ready to slam on the ground, mainly by the truck spawn, and occasionally turning to the right hand side to the secondary spawn. And then once the sword has run out, I would then use the Apothicon Servant and shoot 2 shots consecutively in order to charge up with the sword again, and pretty much rinse and repeat until I was almost out of ammo. And then I would be using an Alchem on my final shot in order to replenish the ammo in my Apothicon Servant. And rinse and repeat this strategy, except if I were to run out of ammo in my Apothicon Servant, I would then be using the L-Car with Blast Furnace in order to proc that to refill my sword. However, I never really got to that point in this game, because I realized, or I found out rather, that if you activate meatballs in this strategy, it kind of gets quite a bit slower. And so because I'd found this out and I wasn't really making as much progress as I would have liked, my motivation for playing kind of dwindled, and I ended up going down on like round 56 or something. Looking back, it was actually round 68, so I was really far off on that one. But yeah, after I took the down, I was going to recover, and then I decided, you know what, I really don't want to play this game anymore today, so I pretty much just quit. But then I came back a few days later, and this time I played without meatballs. And in order to do this, you just have to not activate Pack-a-Punch. So I would basically be setting up the exact same, except I would be playing without Pack-a-Punch this time, and I'd also decided it would be better for me to play without Quick Revive this time as well. And this is because if you buy Quick Revive on any map on Black Ops 3, you will actually activate the Death Machine drop, and that basically means you won't get as many max ammos. And this is because you have an extra drop in the drop cycle, which is basically replacing a potential max ammo like every 5 rounds or something. Something else to note is on other maps which have like trap switches or stuff like that, you will actually activate death machines just by switching the power on. It's only because this map doesn't have like a generic power switch that it doesn't have death machines when you switch power on, like at the individual machines. And I also think the same can be said for Origins, but I don't remember too much. I could be completely wrong on that. So instead of playing with Quick Revive, I would also play with Speed Cola. And now, there's something else I would like to explain about the strategy. Actually, there's 2 things. So, the first thing I want to address is how I'm spamming the sword so quickly, when normally you would take, like, quite a long time floating in the air in order to slam down. And so, in order to do this, all you have to do is pull out the sword, and then I would immediately hold down the button for lightning slamming, and you want to keep that button held down while you left-click, as instead of slashing, you will just constantly be doing lightning slams every time you click the slash button rather than the Lightning Slam because you already have the Lightning Slam held down. So it basically confuses the game. I believe this is classed as an exploit and the community allows it. And since you can't have like an infinite amount of the sword or anything, I guess it's considered fine by the community. The second thing is what the little Arnies are used for. And they are basically used in order to attract the Margwa away close to where the Civil Protector will land. Now, luckily, the Civil Protector is right next to the strategy. It's just outside of the spawn control area, but that's not that big of an issue. And what you would do is when you see a Margwa spawning in, you would throw a little Arnie on the ground, pretty much close to where the Civil Protector will land. It doesn't even have to be that close because the Civil Protector's range is huge. And then you want to call in the Civil Protector, and what the Civil Protector basically does is when he slams on the ground, he'll just insta-kill the Margwa. Like, he doesn't even put up a fight, he's just instantly dead. Which is a pretty cool mechanic for the Civil Protector to have. And finally, there is one last little bit of information I want to talk about, which is going to be used a lot on, well, every single map, which is the Gobblegum Cycle. So the Gobblegum Cycle works exactly the same way as the Drop Cycle, in which you need to have one of every single Gobblegum before you can have another one of the same Gobblegum. So for example, if I had Lucky Crit and then Armamental Accomplishment and then I got my Alchem, I would then basically have to waste 2 hits of the Gobblegum machine before I can have another chance of getting an alchemical from the Gobblegum machine, because there are 5 Gobblegums at all times in your Gobblegum cycle. And I also want to point out, I'm only playing classics on Black Ops 3, and so there will be no Mega Gobblegums, which means there's no like having one of one Gobblegum in order to get through to a better Gobblegum in the cycle. So yeah, that's the way the Gobblegum cycle works. Like a 3rd hit Alchem means I've got to hit 2 more times in the cycle before I have another chance of getting another Alchem. And so what I would do most of the time is, if I got like a 5th hit Alchem, for example, I would wait until I've used one of the Alchem uses, because you have 2 activations. And then after I've used one of them, I will then hit the Gobblegum once and maybe twice in the earlier rounds. And this is in order to try and get like 2 hits that I don't really care about, like the Lucky Crit or In Plain Sight or something like that. So I can try and cycle around to my alchemical faster when I need it. Now, most of the time this pays off and it's great. Sometimes it comes back to bite me in the ass. But all in all, it worked out really well in this game. And while I was doing this strategy, I had managed to get to round 100 in under 3 hours and 10 minutes, which is the fastest I've ever gotten to round 100 on this map. It was really fast and really cool. Though I will say I am sad to see the waterfront strategy basically become useless with the invention of this new strategy. But with all the tech it takes in order to do this strat, it's alright. So now that Shadows were finally out of the way and done with, it was time to go onto the Giant, which is basically Darius remastered for like the 2nd time. So, although I called it a remaster of Darius, the reason I'm playing it again is because it plays much differently than the World at War and the Black Ops 1 versions. Now, this is obviously because of the AATs and the Gobblegums and everything like that. And so it just makes the game feel like an entirely new kind of experience. However, the start of the map is much the same. I would basically get the Shiva off of the wall in the spawn room and then stay in the spawn room till about the end of round 3 or 4. And then I would go into the VMP room, where it would normally be the Thompson room, and play in there until my first dog round. Then on round 6, I would get my first dogs, and I would leave in order to hit the box, in order to get my Wunderwaffe and monkeys from the box location. I then went to switch the power on, and then I would run back to the VMP room, staying there again until the next dog round. And in between rounds 8 and 9, I would actually buy double tap, which happened to be in the VMP room itself. And I would also grab Juggernog, which was just on the outside of the room I was camping in. And one major difference that BO3 Giant has over, you know, BO1 Darius, for example, is the perk locations are actually randomized. And this goes for every single perk on the map, except for Stamina Up or Deadshot. And actually, let me talk about that real quick. So when you start a game of the Giant, if you play offline on console, or if you just play on PC, you can actually tell in the spawn room if you have Stamina Up or Deadshot underneath the snow pile. And all you have to do to check is you go to this little gap in the fence, you kind of jump up, and then you'll basically see whether there's a black dot or no black dot on the snow pile. And what you're looking for is the black dot to be there, because that signifies that you have Stamina Up underneath the snow pile. And it's 100% guaranteed it will be there. Now, after this dog round, after I'd bought Double Tap and Juggernog, it was round 10 I got my dog round. I would then make my way over the bridge, and I would also grab Mule Kick. And then just until the next dog round, or until I ran out of ammo, I would basically be camping this one window until then, because this is pretty much the fastest way to play the early rounds. But I'm also not the biggest fan of it, so I really didn't play here very long. Because at the end of round 14, I went behind to where the Bowie Knife location is, and I got Quick Revive, and then I switched on the teleporter to link it to the mainframe. I then waited until round 18, which was my next dog round, and I went ahead and linked the teleporter just past where the one window spawn was. And I'd already linked up the teleporter by the Kuda wall by, and so after I'd linked up the final teleporter, I went back through to the Kuda teleporter in order to do something to unlock Stamina Up. And so in order to actually get rid of the snow pile to get Stamina Up, what you have to do is you have to throw a monkey bomb in the teleporter and then teleport with the monkey bomb. And you have to do that in every teleporter location, so 3 times. Then after the final time you've teleported, you then have to switch this red button on the side, and it will shoot a laser beam basically at the snow pile, and then you can get your Stamina Up. However, something I'd forgotten that is included in this patch is basically when you teleport, at least for like the first 20 rounds or so, you are guaranteed perk bottles in order to, help you not restart for an extra perk. And once again, this is a Giant exclusive. This isn't available on Derice or anything. Basically, when you teleport, you have a chance of getting a perk bottle from the teleportation instead of getting just a regular drop like a double points or insta-kill. Now, I want to emphasize this. It is incredibly rare to actually get this to happen, and the higher round you're on, the lower the chance of it actually happening. I think it's like a 1% chance per teleport, or maybe even less than that. But the patch that I used, again, it's Jumpy's first box patch, which also has all his camos on it. And so I would basically be using that, and it actually gives you just 2 perks. So I ended up getting Stamina Up and Speed Cola from this. And then at this point, I just needed to get the Vesper and then Pack-a-Punch all my weapons. Now, I actually got really unlucky in this game, and I don't think I got set up until about round 30. And this is because I could not get Deadwire on my VMP for the life of me. And then getting turned was also a little bit of a pain on the Vesper. But once I'd finally gotten everything done, I was basically set up from around 30 onwards. And the strategy was honestly quite simple. For the first about 50 to 60 rounds, I would basically be switching on the trap and then using my Wunderwaffe to kill any zombies, because I would just cycle through my alchems. But from like 60 plus, it's getting a little bit more difficult to be able to do that. And so I would basically start incorporating my AATs in it. And the strategy would basically be to loop around the room, generally taking the shorter path, but if you do get blocked off, you can always go around the back. And for the most part, I would have the Wunderwaffe out in front of me, just in case anything went wrong. And then when I made my way to the stairs, I would basically be using my Deadwire, and then also switch to my turned weapon in order to get a few extra kills. And then if I also got some bad spawns at the window as I was coming around from the front entrance of the room where the trap is, I would pretty much just shoot my Wunderwaffe and then make my way through, because the Wunderwaffe works a little bit differently in this game. A lot of people don't actually like the way it works in Black Ops 3, but I think it's an amazing safety weapon compared to all the other Wunderwaffes. It's still nowhere near as good as like a Thundergun, for example, but it's honestly not that bad. Because what will happen is the Wunderwaffe will actually stun quite a few zombies around you, and it will basically then choose, like, I think 10 zombies in order to kill. And so even if the Wunderwaffe doesn't kill the zombie that you're trying to get past, I think you still have like half a second to a second to actually get past the zombie before it starts moving again. Now obviously sometimes this does fail, but in this game I don't think I experienced a single fail, which is incredible. So yeah, after training in the room, using the Wunderwaffe, popping alchems when I need to, I managed to get to round 100 flawless in about 4.5 hours. And this map, there really isn't that much to talk about. It was quite simple. And even the next map that I'm going to talk about is also fairly simple. So, Der Eisendrache is what I would consider to be one of the fan favorites on Black Ops 3 Zombies in general. Now, I think this is probably because of the similarities between the elemental bows on Der Eisendrache with the elemental staffs on Origins. However, I'm personally not the biggest fan of this map. I get quite bored of it very easily, but this is also probably due to playing it quite a bit when I was younger. But anyway, in the spawn room I would start off by buying the Shiva, but also the RK5, and I would be playing in the spawn room until the first dog round, which was unfortunately on round 6 for me. After this, I would also make sure that the box location was by the first dragon head, which for me would be on the double tap side. So on round 7 I would open up and just hit the box a couple of times. Now on Der Eisendrache, the first box patch, there isn't actually anything patched, or at least there wasn't for me, but I luckily managed to get the ray gun for like one of my first weapons, as well as the BRM LMG. So I would stick by the box location until I basically filled the dragon head up. I would also grab the shield part location that's in that area, and then I would move away at the end of the following round in order to switch the power on. Once I'd switched the power on, I would then be making my way round to the bell tower to look for the second shield part, and then make my way into the church to fill up the second dragon head. By the end of round 10, I'd filled up the second dragon head, and so on round 11 I began filling up the final dragon head in order to get the initial bow. I actually ended up finishing round 11 before I'd filled up the head, and so by round 12 I didn't have the bow for the Panzer. But this wasn't that much of an issue, because at the end of round 11 I did buy Juggernog, and then I also had a ray gun for killing the Panzer. And so I would stand at the bottom next to where the well is in order to get the Panzer to spawn there, and then I would just rail into him with a ray gun, and it killed him in like 10 to 15 bullets. It was super quick. And at this point I picked up the part that he drops for the Ragnaroks. I would then finish feeding the dragon on round 12, and then also finish the round down there. Then on round 13 I would pick up the bow and then make my way to start the quest for the lightning bow. So I'd begin the quests on round 14, which I actually ended up getting a dog round on as well. And on top of this, I switched the death ray on at the end of round 13 in order to get the second part for the Ragnaroks. But anyway, on round 15, I went and grabbed double tap and made my way through, and actually teleported a little bit too soon. And this is because I'd kind of forgotten the steps for the lightning bow. And yeah, when I got there, I realized, oh, I completely forgot to do that step. I'm an idiot. Why have I fucking gone here? However, I had moved the locations for the Pack-a-Punch. So the Pack-a-Punch did appear while I was at the rocket test site. And I was fortunate enough to get an anywhere but here. So I basically ABH'd out of there. Although my first one actually took me into like the teleporter area when I was outside in the rocket test area, which was kind of unlucky, I think. But then my second one took me out, and then I switched on the low gravity, and I did the wall run step for the lightning bow. To be honest, I don't know why I'm calling it the lightning bow when it's like a storm bow, but it's whatever. Also, after switching the low gravity on, I got the third and final shield part. And after ending round 16, I teleported for the second time and I could finally continue the quest for the Stormbow. So once I'd filled the urn up with some souls from zombies, at the end of the round, I then got a charged bullet next to the urn in order to get the charged bow shot and shot it at one of the fireplaces I'd lit up earlier. And then I also ended up playing another round at the rocket test site because I needed to get the final part for the Ragnaroks, which includes just switching this lever whenever it turns green and then going inside the teleporter area. And at this point on round 18, I was looking really low on ammo, and I got very fortunate in getting a alchemical antithesis in order to basically use and get my ammo back. But anyway, I grabbed the final part for the Ragnaroks, and then I made my way back after teleporting all the way through the double tap area after going through spawn, and then went to the second urn location. And after clearing round 19, I built the Ragnaroks, and I got the little spark. And actually what you want to do is take the pad over to the further location away, because it's an easier shot than the other location. And this basically allows you to retry the final location, which is the hardest shot to make. And so if you fail it, you can basically do like 3 or 4 retries in the time you'd only get to do 1 retry if you were trying to do the shot from the other location. Once I'd finally made the last shot, I then went and interacted with the broken arrow, and then at this point I've basically done the Stormbow quest. The last thing I needed to do was put the fully repaired arrow into this little box down in the Undercroft, and then feed it a bunch of souls by just killing zombies right next to it. And with me being on round 21, there were plenty of zombie souls to accumulate. So that meant that by round 22, I finally had the Stormbow, and then I also had a HVK. But if you'll notice, I only have 3 perks at this point, and this is because I was trying to figure out where Mule Kick was for the longest time, like just in my head. And then it finally like clicked on round 25, and so on the dog round, I went and grabbed Mule Kick. So on round 26, I went and saw that the Pack-a-Punch was at the rocket test location, and I went and grabbed an M8, A7, and repacked my HVK until I got Deadwire, and I got turned on my M8, A7. Thankfully this time, I pretty much got both of them immediately, so there wasn't any need to go back and repack later on. And at this point, I was basically completely set up in order to get the round 100. So all the strategy really consisted of was me shooting this Stormbow down at the bottom of the stairs, and then I would be shooting Deadwire and turned at the right hand side where the zombies jump over the barrier. Something that's very important to note while doing this strategy though is you want to be at the very top of the stairs, because if you're standing like just in the middle of the stairs or something, the zombies won't actually spawn just out of these barriers in the church, they'll actually spawn outside as well. So playing at the very top of the stairs is actually just way faster. And then whenever I had insta-kills and death machines, I'd basically be using them at the top of the stairs and shooting either down the stairs for the for the later rounds, or down the stairs and at the side for the earlier rounds. The biggest problem with this strategy though is the Gobblegum machine location that's closest to where you're camping is all the way back in the power location right next to the HVK wallbar. And so this means at the end of every round when you want a new Gobblegum, you basically have to sprint at the very end of the round, even before you end the round, run up the stairs, hit the Gobblegum machine, and then sprint all the way back and try and get back before the round starts. Now sometimes you can't, and so what you'll see me do is I will switch the trap on in order to kill the zombies faster coming from the outside, and then get back up to the spot. Something else that's worthwhile to note is normally when you run this strat, you want to have Electric Cherry. And this is because if you don't have ammo in your Stormbow, for example, what you want to do is you will be using Electric Cherry to basically stun the zombies, slam the zombies when they're on the stairs, and then basically use Electric Cherry again and shoot them with Deadwire in order to get your gravity sparks back. But the reason Electric Cherry is there is because after you slam down, if you shoot your dead wire and you don't get the gravity spikes back, you can then basically stand at like the top of the stairs and reload with Electric Cherry, and that will stun the zombies in place just long enough for you to get another dead wire proc off. And then at that point, that should be enough to get your gravity spikes back to slam down again. But the reason I didn't get Electric Cherry in this game is because I wanted to play with Mule Kick and Quick Revive, which means you have to basically choose between like which perks you want if you want to play with Electric Cherry. And this is because really you're gonna want Juggernog and you need double tap in order to deal with the Panzer. But the reason I wanted Mule Kick was so that I could speed things up, hopefully with using Turn, instead of only having one AAT with Deadwire. And I'd like to think it made at least a little bit of a difference, but I'm honestly not. And that now brings me on to how to deal with the Panzer. And now I actually made a video on this, like a very short clip of me killing the Panzer about like 3 or 4 years ago or something. But all you need to do is when you have a potential Panzer round, which is every 5 or 6 rounds on Der Eisendrache, you want to make your way up to the power location and basically wait there. And if you have a Panzer, you want to go outside and switch the Death Ray on as he's basically turning towards you. After you've done this, because he's facing you, you then want to shoot him directly in the chest area, as this is the weakest point for the Panzer. And after railing in about 3 mags of the HVK in the later rounds, he should pretty much just die, and you've got nothing to worry about. Now, it is pretty close, so it might take you a little while to get used to it, but after doing it like just a few times, you get the hang of it, and he'll basically die super quick and he'll be no threat to you anymore. So the strategy worked out really well all the way up until like probably 80 to 90, and then I noticed I was starting to have a few issues with the Stormbow. And this is because sometimes the Stormbow just doesn't do what you want it to do and it just goes off on its own. Sometimes it'll just fall through the stairs. And so sometimes it was just really aggravating to use this bow, and I wish I kind of got a different bow. I've heard that the fire bow is absolutely incredible, but at the same time, like, this is supposedly still the fastest bow to use. But other than that, I was able to get to round 100 pretty quick. It was just a little under 4 hours. And now that I was at the end of Der Eisendrache, it was finally time for me to go on to a map I'd actually really been looking forward to, Zetsubou no Shima. Now, Zetsubou no Shima is probably a map that many people hate. Maybe they're afraid of spiders, or maybe they just hate the map because it's so confined. But I absolutely love this map. And the reason for this is because it is a very difficult map compared to some of the other maps that you've seen me play. But as well as the difficulty being very hard, it also has some pretty interesting mechanics that allow you to basically have more revives to kind of offset the difficulty. And so to me, it just makes the map very close to perfect, really. So obviously, I'll be starting off in the spawn room here. But there are a few differences. One being I will be buying the RK5, and 2 is that I will be looking for a bucket. Now, I find the bucket immediately, and then I'll be staying in the spawn room until the very first spider round, which was unfortunately on round 7 for me. Now, at this point, I head straight to the box, and I'm pretty sure the box is guaranteed to give me monkeys, and I'm guessing the Brecci and the HVK as well. And so after hitting the box, I would then make my way over to the blue water area and switch the power on in that area. And all you do to do this is deposit the water in the top area. And once I'd done that, I could then activate the cage in order to lure one of the spiders that I'd saved into the cage and then bring it upwards in order to basically extract its material that you need for the KT4. Oh, also, while I was at the box, I would have gotten the wire, and that is needed for the gas mask. But once I'd got the part, I also went and got some more blue water, and then I went round to the green water area, but only the top portion. Because you don't actually need the specific coloured water in order to activate the power in these different places, you just need any kind of water. And so once I deposited the water in the top of the green water area, I then went ahead and opened up the main door entrance in order to switch the main power source on. So I hit the Gobblegum machine for anywhere but here, and then I went ahead and knifed the cobweb that was under the water in order to start the lockdown. And then what you can do is, when you have ABH, you can just ABH out there and it will still complete the lockdown. So after the ABH, I went ahead and cleared out the round a little bit. And then I went ahead and bought Double Tap and Quick Revive, and then I went back to the power switch in order to switch it on. At this point, I'd also moved around the map in order to get the second piece of the gas mask, which is just inside the facility, just at the bottom of the zipline. Afterwards, I went ahead and bought Jug, and then I started getting the Pack-a-Punch pieces. Unfortunately, I could only get 2 of them because I didn't have many points. So after this, I went to the green water area at the beginning of round 12 in order to try and get the next KT4 part. And this didn't take long at all because I believe the second zombie I got in the area was glowing, and I managed to get the second piece for the KT4. So all that was left to do is take the sewer down the underwater area and then go underwater, grab the Pack-a-Punch piece, and also grab the kind of floral piece for the KT4. And I'm not gonna lie, I must have been blind or something because I couldn't find the Pack-a-Punch piece my first time down there. So when I went out, I just grabbed the KT4 and was on my way. But then I went back down and tried to pass through some zombies by throwing a monkey, but the monkey didn't work, and so I had to ABH out of there. So I went back at the end of the round and finally got the last Pack-a-Punch piece I needed. And when I say Pack-a-Punch piece, I mean like the different valves in order to unlock Pack-a-Punch, not like the actual Pack-a-Punch pieces like you'd find on Transit. And then I went ahead and Pack-a-Punched the M8A7, as this was going to be the main weapon I used to kill with using Deadwire. I then decided to head around the entire map, grabbing the shield pieces, and built the shield up by where I would purchase ammo for the M8A7 at the top of the green water area. At this point, I also had a look at my challenges, and the top challenge was always guaranteed to give you a free perk slot, and so mine was to eat fruit from a fruit plant. So I went ahead and got the different coloured waters, and went around to 3 different locations to try and get some fruit plants. On top of this, I still needed to get the skull of Nansapwe, and so I went around getting the skulls and putting them on the pedestals, and by round 20 I had the skull. On top of this, my attempts at growing the fruit plants were actually successful, and this is quite unusual because I got 2 fruit plants and 1 imprint plant. Not only do fruit plants not have a 100% guarantee chance of, being a fruit plant, the fact that I also got an imprint plant with them when I was just going for fruit plants is pretty incredible, because imprint plants are, I believe, even rarer than fruit plants. But after picking up the skull, it was time for me to play Farming Simulator, because I needed to try and get at least 2 or 3 perk slots. This is so I could have Electric Cherry, Speed Cola, and Mule Kick as my extra 3 perks. And the cool thing with Jumpy's Patch is that it actually guarantees Electric Cherry from the first fruit plant that you eat. However, before I went and ate the fruit plant, I wanted to get myself an extra perk slot, because I'm not sure if you're guaranteed to throw up when you eat the fruit plant and you don't have enough perk slots to support it. I'm not actually sure how that works because I've never tested it myself. And so in order to get the perk slots, what I needed to do is grow a few plants with just straight blue water. And so for my greatest chance of getting the perk slots, I would grow 3 blue plants across 3 rounds, because you have to water them 3 times each. But not only this, I would also be trying to grow some imprint plants. And the way you grow imprint plants is by shooting the same plant 3 times across 3 rounds. But like I said, they have a very rare chance of actually growing. And so on my first batch, I only got the blue plants. However, I did manage to get a perk bottle. So I went ahead to the fruit plant, grabbed the fruit, and got my Electric Cherry. But if you remember, I also had a fruit plant challenge for my extra perk bottle, so I ended up getting an extra perk bottle from that, and now I only needed one more. And unfortunately, it took me all the way until around 37 to actually get the perk bottle for Speed Golem. And although it took me so long to get all my perk slots, while I was doing this, because I was shooting the KT4 shot at every plant, I ended up getting another 2 imprint plants. And for those of you who didn't know, you can only actually get 4 imprint plants in any one game. So combine the 2 I just got from watering the plants and shooting them with the KT4 with the one when I was trying to get my fruit plants, that took me up to a total of 3 imprint plants. So let me talk about why these imprint plants are so good. Think of it as making a copy of everything that you can see on your HUD. So that means your perks, your points, your ammo, and your gobblegum will all get saved in the imprint plant. And so what will happen is it only activates when you fully die out without quick revive. But when you do, you will be brought back with everything you had when you saved yourself there. Think of it a little bit like the time bomb from Buried. It will basically take you back to that point. However, the round will stay the same as what it is. So for example, let's say you imprint yourself on round 39, but you use your imprint plant, like you fully die out, for example, on round 99, you will then be brought back on round 99 with everything you had on round 39. And this basically means you can have an extra 2 revives per imprint plant if you imprint yourself with quick revive on your person. And that's exactly what I did, and I made sure I went in with in plain sights, so that if I did end up using them, I would also have a safety gobblegum to use after I got out of my imprint plant. And since it took me all the way until around 37 to get fully set up, let me talk about the strategy a little bit. So I would have the KT4 for kind of just in case emergencies. I would have the M8A7 as my main weapon for killing with Deadwire on it. And then I would also have the ICR with Turned on it. You'll see me use Deadwire and Turned on basically all of the maps except for maybe like 1 or 2. And that's because Deadwire Turned is basically the fastest way of playing and like going through the rounds. But anyway, the place I was playing in is no joke. It's basically playing in the schoolroom, and it's called the schoolroom strat. And it mainly consists of doing like these kind of half room loops where you would go around the edge, you would cut just in front of the first pillar, and then you go pretty much to the stairs and go basically behind like the ground spawns. And the reason this strategy is so hard is because the zombies spawn in incredibly fast, but they also spawn in all over the place. Like there's probably at least about 8 different zombie spawn areas in this room. Again, don't quote me on that, I could be wrong, there could be more, there could be less. But they spawn in such a way that it is just incredibly hectic. And that's the whole reason I was getting so many imprint plants, because it's kind of unpredictable in how many downs I might end up taking. But I would be mainly using Deadwire either when I was at the stairs or at the pillar, and then I would be shooting Turned whenever I didn't have a turned zombie out in front of me. On top of this, whenever the skull was ready, I would also be using the skull in order to kill the zombies, as it's just incredibly fast to kill with. And finally, Electric Cherry is very useful in order to kill the spiders if they ever get in your way, so you would normally not see me reload until I was close to a spider. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I actually played incredibly well and used my safety gobblegums really well, only using them when I was getting in a really tricky situation. And because of using them like this and not using them too little, so I end up taking it down, or too early, so I was wasting them, I actually didn't take it down until round 87. Now, don't get me wrong, there were some incredibly close calls to this point. To take my first down on 87, I was incredibly happy with. So after the down, I went and got all my perks back, and this included Electric Cherry, because I think on the version of the patch I was playing on at this moment in time, Jumpy hadn't actually edited the fruit plants to give you anything else other than Electric Cherry. And so, yeah, I may have cheesed that a little bit. However, I did take a second down on round 96 when I was using a death machine, as I just couldn't keep up with killing the zombies with it. It just wasn't doing as good a job as in the earlier rounds. And this time I didn't have Electric Cherry to save me in some situations, but it wasn't that big of a problem because I managed to clear all the way around to round 100, and it took me about 4.5 hours. So even with an insanely long setup like the one I had, it was still an incredibly fast map. And imagine if you didn't have to actually do that entire setup, you could probably do this map in like under 4 hours. But that was the end of my fun, unfortunately, because the next map I was going to play is a map I absolutely despise, and in my opinion, it is the worst Black Ops 3 map for high rounds. And the map I'm talking about is, of course, Gorod Krovi. Now, don't get me wrong, I think Gorod Krovi as a casual, fun map is absolutely incredible, and honestly, the Easter egg is really fun to do. But for high rounds, it's just so boring, and I honestly would prefer to play many other maps over this one. So I would start off Gorod Krovi in much the same way as some of the other maps. I would stay in the spawn room until the end of round 4, after using the RK5 to kill most of the zombies. I then went and got the shield part that's close to Juggernog, bought the Vesper off the wall, and played in the shield room for another round. After this, I went to the box location and got my Mark III and monkeys, and I also ended up with a Draken. I'm not sure whether that was part of the first box or I just got lucky, but yeah. Then finally, on round 7, I would switch the power on finally. And I would also be then looking for the other shield parts. I also decided to buy Stamina Up and Juggernog on round 8, and I also bought Double Tap a little later on, which was probably my biggest regret in this game, at least for the early game. And then by round 12, I had managed to get all of the network circuits, and it was time for me to fly over to Pack-a-Punch. And now this is where this map actually differs quite a lot from most high round games. And this is because I actually end up doing the Easter egg in this run. And the reason I wanted to do the Easter egg is because of one very overpowered thing you get from completing the Easter egg in under 1.5 hours. So what this is if you complete the Easter egg in under 1.5 hours on Gorod Krovi specifically, not only do you get a Perkaholic as a reward, you will also get pretty much permanent aftertaste. And what this means is after you go down, when you get revived, you will basically be revived, and you will have every single perk other than quick revive. But you might be wondering, well, that's not very helpful because, you know, you didn't get any extra perk slots. But actually, you do. You can basically go up to the quick revive machine and get your quick revive back. And the best thing about it is once you're out of quick revives, you can then go to the Wonder Fizz that's on the map. Yes, Gorod Krovi has a Wonder Fizz. And you can get quick revive back from the Wonder Fizz. So in combination, basically means when you go down, you get revived with every perk other than quick revive. I can then just throw a monkey, go around to wherever the Wonder Fizz is, throw a second monkey, and then grab quick revive back. And if I did go down multiple times in a round, I wouldn't even need to throw a monkey. I could just like hoard up or like use the Mark III to slow them down or something. And it's incredibly useful, and so on round 13, I would start off the Easter egg by getting the Dragon Strike from Pack-a-Punch. I would also obviously be getting the egg for the Gauntleted Siegfried, which is arguably the coolest fucking specialist weapon they added into Black Ops 3. So after I did the lockdown, I would Pack-a-Punch my Mark III and my Drakon, shoot the Dragon Egg, and then place it down in spawn, for the Dragon to only come like less than a minute later, which meant I just had to clear out 2 rounds, and then I would be able to pick the egg up. After doing this, I would then train in spawn for a little bit, waiting for the fire, so I could then use my Drakon to basically get the kills for the killing zombies when they're on fire, the collaterals, and then finally for the melee kills, I'd just pull out the shield, you know, blast a few zombies, and it was done. Then at this point, I would also just go back to where I picked the egg up and put it in the incubation. And since you get a Valkyrie spawn in at this point, I would use that Valkyrie drone to, you know, switch on the generator. And so at this point, I would be running around the map looking for the tubes and putting it in the chronorium thing that Mr. Waffles put out. Shout out to him, because I would not know how the fuck to do this otherwise. So I'd be putting it in the thing, it calculated the valves I needed to do, and I basically did all the valves. And then for those of you who have done the Gold Crovy Easter egg before, you'll know that I will then be going over to Sophia, putting in the cylinder, and then I will be putting in the code Kronos. And while I've been doing all of this, I would have also been gathering all of the trophies, and at this point the only one left that I need is the one with the fists for the safe in the shield room. So I went back and grabbed it, and then I began the different challenges. And the very first challenge I got was the little supply pod that drops down, and you have to protect it. And this was no issue at all. I've got a Draken, so it was easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Next on the list was just getting the Gersh, and now this step was pretty easy. As soon as I found him, I would just shoot him, and then shoot him, then shoot him before he could go to a different location. The weird thing here though is my quotes were a little bit dodgy, so he would start moving before he even finished one of his quotes. So it threw me off a little bit, but I still managed to do it before he moved to another location. And that was that. That was really easy again. The difficulty was the next challenge, where I got the Mangler. Now, I found him really early on, which was great, but when I tried to shoot his arm off, he instantly died. And this happened like 3 or 4 times, and I could feel my soul leaving my body, because I could not shoot his arm off without killing him. And I blame Double Tap for this, because Double Tap is just too good. It's just absolutely too good. In combination with the Drakon that was Pack-a-Punched, and then I also tried using the Mark III that was Pack-a-Punched, everything was just too strong. It would just kill him immediately. And I did not complete this step on round 22, 23, 24, or 25. It took me all the way until round 26 to do this challenge, because I went down, which meant my Drakon wasn't strong enough to kill the fucker anymore. And basically I managed to finally shoot the arm off, and I basically did the challenge when I had no perks on round 26. So after I finally got the challenge done, I then went back, grabbed Quick Revive, Juggernog, Double Tap, and Stamina up again, because Double Tap doesn't matter at this point. So next on the list was the bomb step. Nice and super simple. Went round to each location, hit the button, bing bang bosh, it's done. And then before the guaranteed holdout, I obviously had the escort mission for the Valkyrie drone, and now this is a major pain in the ass. I hate doing this one almost as much as I hate the Mangler one, but since I had the Mark IIIs, it wasn't terrible, because I just slowed down the zombies. I didn't kill them or anything, but it was okay. No failures on this one, thankfully. And then it was time to do the holdout. Once again, the holdout, super simple. The Drakon just absolutely destroys the Manglers, so no issue at all. And finally, when I went back, I gave Sophia what she wanted. Then I got the power core, and then this is where I got really confused, because I went into spawn and pulled out the dragon to give it the power core to Nikolai, and it just didn't work, and I was really confused. It turns out the whole time I was doing it, I just wasn't in the right position. And so I went back and tried it again, this time in the right position, and it worked completely fine. It was nice and easy. So now it was boss fight time. Let's go! Big dragon fight. Ended up being a lot easier than I remember it being. I remember struggling so much on this fight, but the Mark III just makes such light work out of it that there's absolutely no need to worry. And then for the Nikolai fight, I kind of forgot like where to shoot, but I had 2 in plain sights. I only needed to use 1 anyway. Shot his body, shot his little things where he brings the wraps out, and then shot him directly in the chest. And that was it. End of the boss fight, and I ended up doing it in about an hour and 10 minutes, which meant I got the OP Perkaholic. And so at this point, it was time for me to camp what was left of the early rounds, which wasn't that much, and I would camp it in the stamina place. Now, you'd pretty much just be seeing me do shit with the Mark III. I'd just be shooting the Mark III, the slowdown, then shoot the other one to make the black hole. This unfortunately drops off very, very quickly, to the point where, like, in the mid-40s, I was struggling quite a lot. The only reason it was worth staying there was for, like, the insta-kills and death machines. And so, at the end of, like, round 48, 49, maybe I did camp it to 50. I then went ahead and started playing the main strategy, which I absolutely despise. Before I talk about that, though, I should probably talk about the fact that I got rid of the Drakon. I had the Mark IIIs, I had the Vesper with Deadwire, and I had the Kuda with Turned, and this is basically the loadout I used for the entire game. As well as this, instead of cycling for Alchems, this also goes for Zetsubou no Shima earlier, you want to cycle for In Plain Sights, as this is your safety. It's really, really overpowered, it's super nice. Yeah, In Plain Sight's really good. And so the strategy I would be doing is staying in the shield room location. I'd switch on the trap, pretty much use like Deadwire and Turn when the trap's on, maybe a little bit of the shield. Then when the trap is off, I would use the shield. And that's it. I'd just use the shield. And this is because the shield does infinite damage with the shield blast. So what you would do is you'd like either use a shield blast, or you just pull out the shield and damage it. And then you want to get the shield as low as possible for the last shot. So after you use the last bullet of the shield blast, you then basically destroy the shield, grab a new one from the table, and rinse and repeat. And that's literally it. It is boring as fuck. Not to mention, this map is actually pretty slow by BO3 standards. Like, by this point, I was already like 2 hours into just round 50. Obviously, doing the Easter egg doesn't help, but yeah, it still sucks. And then the other thing you might be wondering is, well, why are you not using the Specialist? Surely that would speed things up. And honestly, I'm sure it would. But the problem with using the Specialist is it crashes the game. It's the coolest Specialist in the game, and it crashes. So after what felt like a painstakingly long time, to about round 80, it was only 4 hours. But I had finally made it to round 80, and I think I'd only taken one down since I completed the Easter egg, which is really good. But this is where my fatigue kind of set in, and over the course of the next 2 hours, about 2.5 hours actually, I ended up taking about 5 more downs, 2 or 3 of which were in the 90s, and this is because, mainly probably because of Valkyrie drones. Now, these little shits never should have existed. I despise them. Like, I cannot stand the Valkyrie drones. They don't behave like normal zombies. They move in a completely random pattern. They do whatever the fuck they like. And not only that, they zap you and zap you and zap you. And sometimes they block you. Like, there was one instance where they just completely blocked me from getting the shield. And so I was literally forced to use an IPS. And it just sucked. And they're just so annoying. I absolutely hate them. Oh, and a little fun fact for you guys. My highest round on this map is 186. And I crashed on that. This is when I was going for my round 200 on every map challenge, which is just on hold at the moment. But that crash is probably the most demotivating thing. And do you want to know what causes this crash? You're never gonna believe it. It's killing Valkyrie drones. So what you have to do in order to get a high round like 255 on Gorod Krovi is you have to let all 3 of these Valkyrie drones, because there can only be 3 at a time, you have to let them in the room with you, hitting you constantly, while you just take out the zombies during the round, and then you can kill them at the end of the round. It is by far the most frustrating way to play the map, which is why I didn't do it here, because I was only going to 100, and the crash isn't anything to worry about. But let me tell you, playing with them just in the room with you, and because you're playing them with them in the room with you, you're taking an unbelievable amount of downs. I think in one of the games I played, I had something like 40 or 50 downs to 150, because they're just everywhere, and they're just really annoying, and I just hate them. But yeah, after those painstaking 2.5 hours, I was finally on round 100 in about 6 hours and 20 minutes. It felt like it took so much longer than that, but it was finally over, and I was on the final map of the base game, and a really nice one to finish on, Revelations. Revelations is probably the easiest map on Black Ops 3 in total, and obviously by far the easiest Black Ops 3 map in the base game. And now this is because not only do you have the Apothicon Servant, you have the Thundergun as well, you also have Ragnaroks, and on top of all this, you can then also Pack-a-Punch the Apothicon Servant, which is unbelievably overpowered. With that being said, I'd spawn in with the RK5, and I would basically immediately buy a Quick Revive. Now, probably normally when I play Revelations for round 100, I doubt I would normally use Quick Revive, but I just wanted to make sure that I got the 100, so if anything unprecedented happened and I ended up taking it down for whatever reason, 1, I could still get the 100 in this attempt, and 2, that means I would still get it first attempt, which meant I wouldn't look like that much of a noob. No, but seriously, I would just play it with safety in mind, and with that being said, I played it pretty much as safe as I possibly could. And although Revelations is a very easy map, I think it's by far the most aesthetically pleasing map out of all of the maps to come. Or rather, all of the maps that we've had before it, because it is just a really stunning map. They did a really good job with this map. And although some people might call it lazy with meshing all the maps together, I honestly think they did a really good job. I think it feels really fluid and runs really well. And part of me doesn't even mind it being like this overpowered, because it kind of makes my life easier with getting these round 100s. Oh, and before I continue, something I want to point out is I think in some of the other parts I've said I buy the RK5. Yeah, no, I don't buy the RK5. I spawn in with it because I've done the Easter egg, but also Jumpy's patch has it in. Because normally when you play completely offline, you won't actually have the RK5. But like normal, I would stay in the spawn room until round 5, the end of round 4, and then I went to the box location, which was at Drak, and once again, the first box patch coming in clutch as fuck. I would get the Squid Gun, Thunder Gun, Rags, and Lil Larnies as a little extra. And then it was a case of going around the map and starting all the engines, and I would also be looking for all of the shield parts, just as some extra little bit of safety. And whilst I'm at each location, I'd also be finishing the round in that location, just to pretty much speed things up a bit. And then on round 10, I finally realised, wait, I kind of need to shoot these rocks in the sky with my Apothicon Servant. And so I start doing that. This is because in order to actually Pack-a-Punch the Apothicon Servant, you have to shoot 5 blue rocks in the sky. You can see all of them from spawn, but they're very far away. So I would normally just run around the map and just get them in the locations that they're in. But I forgot until I got into Mob of the Dead. Also on round 10, I did get Mule Kick in order to get a HVK off of the wall. And this would just be for using insta-kills if I had to let zombies out of the barrier. Which, spoiler, I would be doing quite a lot later on. So the last 2 perks I would be getting here would be Speed Cola and Juggernog. This is because the only thing that's really useful is the reload speed for making sure you can reload the weapon before a max or like before an Alchem finishes to get an extra bit of time with the Apothicon Servant. If I were to go for 255, I might have switched to double tap instead, just because double tap would then be proccing my dead wire a little bit faster. And on round 14, I thought I was ready to basically stop the massive Apothicon Worm in the sky, but it turns out I had forgotten to do the Der Eisendrache engine thing, and I had to run back and get that done. Then finally I could stop it. I then went ahead and got a bunch of points while sitting in the 2 spawn location in Verrückt. And then at this point, I'd shot all the blue rocks in the sky, I'd got the worm done, I'd got all my perks, it was just a case of pack-a-punching all my weapons. And unfortunately, I didn't even have any enough points to double pack-a-punch my H3K in the end. I actually barely managed to get enough points to pack-a-punch it in the first place. And then once this was done, it was a case of heading back to the 2 spawn in Verrückt and staying there the entire time. Now, although Rev is quite an easy map, there are still a couple things that you can do in order to speed things up and just to make things a little bit easier for you. So something very vital with this strategy is where I'm actually standing. Because at first glance you might just think, oh yeah, it's just another spawn control, what's so different about that? Well, you have to stay very close to where the box location is, pretty much. You can't go too far away from it. And this is because the spot I'm standing in allows no Furies and no Keepers to actually spawn in. And the reason this is quite important is because if they were to spawn in, they're a bit like the meatballs on Shadows of Evil, where they'll just prevent the zombies from spawning in for a little bit of time. And so that means overall you would be getting less kills with the Apothicon Servant, and therefore potentially sometimes not making enough kills in order to charge up your Specialist. Not only that, but it also just slows down the game significantly, probably losing you about 20 to 30 minutes just to round 100. Something else of relative importance to note, and this is just for the first like 100 rounds or so, is you won't see me using gravity spikes unless I really have to. And this is just because playing with the Apothicon Servant only is the fastest way to play this map. I'll just be shooting the Apothicon Servant and that's it. And that's probably because the animation for them dying, or like even just getting to the point of dying, it takes them longer to get there. Even just by like a second or two, it makes a big difference in the long run. And so cycling through Alchems was very important, just to be able to, you know, get a faster time. And now let's talk about how the boss rounds work and the special rounds. So the boss round is basically when a Panzer or Margwa spawns in, and this occurs every like I think 7 to 9 rounds on Revelations. And then the special rounds, this is where you only get Keepers, you get Furies, and you get Bugs. These rounds actually only occur every 10 to 11 rounds, which is actually really good that they don't come more frequently. Because the crazy thing about these bug rounds is they're not like the ones on Shadows, which only take like 30 seconds to do, or like a minute probably. They actually last longer than normal rounds, and the only benefit you get is a max ammo. And so after camping there from about like rounds 20 to 50, I was on round 50 in just a little over an hour. And then I was only 1 hour and 36 minutes to round 70, which is insanely fast. And overall, I'd like to think I didn't really get that lucky with my Alchem cycles. And so I actually ended up getting a 3 hour and 2 minute round 100, which might actually be my Classics PB at 100 time, which is insanely good. Insanely good for me, that is. Compared to the 100 speedrun, it's not that great. But all in all, I'm very pleased with the 100 time. I didn't end up going down, which is awesome. And yeah, it was just a really chill, really easy round 100. Before I forget to talk about it, to deal with the Panzers and Margwas, I would just switch to my Thunder Gun, shoot them. It's that easy to just kill them. Really, really simple. But with 6 100s out of the way for Black Ops 3, that was the base game complete. And it was now time to do Chronicles. And the reason for this is, again, the maps play completely differently on Black Ops 3. And they all are classed as Treyarch maps. So, time to go over to Chronicles and starting us off BO3 Nacht, which is the only map that I was doing that I intentionally knew took longer than 12 hours. So for those of you who will have seen my first video on this with World at War, you'll know that I would have completed Nacht already. But unfortunately, BO3 does not play anywhere near as fast as 24 zombies per round on World at War, as it was for Nacht on World at War. And so what took me 3 hours on World at War was I was suspecting was going to take me about 16 to 18 hours on Black Ops 3. And remember, that's because I'm not using any Mega Gobblegums at all, and Nacht is the first map where I have to experience the unpleasantries of not being able to pack a punch at all. Which meant this was the first map where I was going to have to play without any alternate ammo types like Deadwire, Turned, Blast Furnace. Any of that stuff is not available to me on this map. And that meant that later on the only way for me to actually kill was with the Thunder Gun. And obviously the Thunder Gun doesn't have unlimited ammo, which meant I had to trade out the Thunder Gun many times. And so to start off this very slow map, I would be buying the Shiva off of the wall and staying in the first room until about round 5. I would also buy Mule Kick because it's essential to kind of take an extra weapon out of the box if you can, which with Mule Kick you can actually take another weapon out of the box. This would just help increase my odds of getting the Thunder Gun back every time I traded it, and also allowed me to have a point gun for racking up points in order to try and hit the Gobblegum a bit more later on. That becomes very useful. After buying Mule Kick, I would then go into the box room, this time through the help door, where on World at War I actually went all the way around and kept the help door closed. That's not that big of an issue on Black Ops 3 in Nacht, and that's because you can have all your perks like Jug, Quick Revive, Stamina Up. So I would start off by buying the Kuda off the wall and then hit the box in order to try and get a Ray Gun Mark II and the Thunder Gun. And then as well as hitting the box, at the end of some of the rounds, starting from I think the end of round 8, ranging all the way up to whenever I got all my perks, I would go up and hit the Wonder Fizz in order to try and get all my perks, and thankfully I got Stamina Up very early on, and then I also got Jug at the end of round 10. So all I needed now was the Mark II from the box, the Thunder Gun from the box, and Quick Revive from the Wonder Fizz machine. I did end up getting quite lucky from the box, and I got the Mark II fairly soon after I got my 2 perks. On round 13 I had the Mark II. And so at this point it was just a case of hitting the Wonder Fizz now in order to try and get my Quick Revive, and then I'd go back to the box and then hit for the Thunder Gun. And it was at this point where I started getting quite unlucky, because I didn't manage to get Quick Revive until about round 20. And I still didn't have the Thunder Gun from the box, and I was already half an hour into this game. And this is because the spawns are just incredibly slow on Nacht. And so I would keep just hitting the box from round 20 all the way onwards until round 30, and I still had no sign of the Thunder Gun. Like, I must have hit the box between 100 to 200 times, and I still didn't have the Thunder Gun. But finally, after 54 minutes of hitting the box, pretty much, not exactly, probably around 40 minutes, but yeah, I finally got the Thunder Gun on round 30, and I think that's the longest it's ever really taken me to get the Thunder Gun when playing this map. And it's a good job it came up, because I was starting to think that the Thunder Gun didn't exist anymore and that they patched it out of the game or something. But yeah, thankfully I got it, and we could finally start playing the high round strategy. Well, not quite yet. It was still on a low enough round to where I can run the low round strategy, which is mainly just killing with the Mark II and then doing like very like quarter to half horde kills of zombies with the Thunder Gun in order to just try and speed up these very slow rounds as much as possible. And I would also be using the Mark II to kill as much as possible all the way until about round 50 or so, just to try and get as many points as I possibly could. And this is because points play an incredibly huge factor in this map. Because not only do you need points in order to hit the box again whenever you're trading out the Thunder Gun, you actually need points in order to double hit the Gobblegum machine, because it gets very expensive later on. And I don't think I've really explained how the Gobblegum machine works all that much, so let me give a rundown. Basically, every round you will get 1 hit of the Gobblegum machine, basically for free. That's just the way it is. But you can actually hit the Gobblegum machine again, this time for a second and third time, but it does cost you points. And the amount of points it takes in order to double and triple hit basically doubles every 10 rounds or so. So in the round 50s, for example, where you might need to double hit for the first time because you had a bad Gobblegum cycle with your Alchem, just to double hit the Gobblegum machine in the 50s, it would cost you about 32,000 points. Now, in the grand scheme of things, that doesn't seem like a lot, really, because by this point, I had about 250,000 points, you know, I was stacked. But when you start to think about how much longer the rounds are in like the 70s, 80s, 90s, and then you also think about how that would double every 10 rounds. So round 60 it would be 64,000, round 70 128,000, then round 80 being 250,000, all the way until, you know, the 90s would be 512,000, and it actually caps at round 100 plus, so it doesn't increase further from round 100, but it costs 1 million points just to double hit. And if you want a triple hit, well, you're gonna need a lot of points, because it doubles the amount of points it costs from the double hit, which means on round 70, for example, it's 128,000, which means a triple hit would be 256,000. So you can see how you could lose a lot of points very quickly, but it is so good to rack up these points and double hit whenever you don't have an Alchem, in order to save you from having to trade. Because unfortunately on this map, trades take a very long time sometimes. They can range, well, for me in my game, they range anywhere from getting a one-hit trade, which is incredibly lucky, to potentially a 20-minute long trade. And you can have longer trades than that. There have been some people who have had to trade for like an hour or more, and it's insane. So being able to double hit this Gobblegum machine in order to try and get an Alchem so that you can make your Thundergun last longer before your first trade, it can save you so much time by just being able to get constant Alchems back to back. And so by doing this, I didn't actually have to do my first trade until about round 70. And now let me tell you a little bit about the strategy itself. So I would start by this barrier at the back of the room and put in an entire mag of the Kuda into the spawns over there to try and make some points. As well as this, after I'd shot the mag, I would then go down to the doorway and start doing kind of cutbacks around this doorway while shooting the Kuda into the horde of zombies. Then once I had all 24 zombies in the horde, I would then shoot the Thundergun at the zombies and then repeat this loop. And every time I basically did a loop, I'd be making anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 points. Which, you know, that might not sound like that many points. But when you factor in the fact that you have 14 Thundergun bullets, that means 14 times anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000. We'll go with 3,000 just for the sake of it. And that's about, what, 42,000 points? So these points definitely add up. And it just meant that I could get an extra couple of double hits in the 60s and 70s. Also, usually when using an Alchem, you'll wait until your last bullet in order to then use the Alchem or so, or maybe your last 2 bullets, depending on the map. But Nacht is a little bit different, because the only weapon you can use in order to kill with on the map is the Thundergun. So you actually wait until you're down to 0 and 0 in your Thundergun, then you do the horde up again, and then you can activate your Alchem, knife a zombie in order to get the bullet you need, and then shoot them with the Thundergun. And this allows you to get like an extra 2 to 3 hordes of zombie kills, which is absolutely insane when it comes to like the 80s and 90s. It just allows you to not need to trade those rounds, especially if you get a max ammo beforehand. Now, I did end up taking 3 downs in this game, but thankfully you can actually technically have unlimited downs on this map, as long as you've got the points to hit the Wonder Fizz and, you know, the skill in order to get the perks from the Wonder Fizz machine. Because on round 56 I took my first down, and in order to get your perks back mid-round, you basically have to have the horde of zombies on you while you hit the perk machine. And the problem is you don't have that much time to see what the perk is that you got from the Wonder Fizz. So sometimes you might take a little bit too long initially, in order to take the perk, and you can end up basically dying when trying to get your perk. So in order to get my perks back, I would be training the zombies in the room where the Wunderfizz is, and I'd be training them in an anti-clockwise motion. And then if I did manage to get a perk that I needed, I would basically pick up the perk and go into the room next to it in order to then do a few cutbacks to get all the zombies together to be able to go back in the room. And this worked well enough because after about 5 minutes, I managed to get all my perks back. Now I can't find either my second or third down, but it was either my second or third down on round 86. When I was recovering, I actually messed up and I had to shoot a Thundergun bullet, but I got very fortunate and I got my quick revive first, and then I got Jug, and then I got Stam, all within like 4 hits of the Wunderfizz, which is insane. But yeah, after about 15 hours of just looping the zombies, killing them with the Thundergun, I was finally on round 99. But unfortunately, it was at this stage in the game where I ended up getting the worst trade of the entire match, being I think about 18 minutes. And that was just the first trade of the round, because round 99 actually requires you to do 2 trades if you don't have an Alchem. Thankfully though, my second trade was actually really fast. I think it was about 2 minutes or so. And it was just a case of hoarding up the zombies, killing them horde by horde, until I finally reached round 100 in, I think it was about 15 hours and like 44 minutes. Actually, it was 15 hours and 47 minutes. But that one round 99 itself took me about 45 minutes. Just for that one round, it took 45 minutes. So, as you can see, that one round was unbelievably long. And it's the reason I didn't do the Black Ops 1 version, because the BO1 version is even longer and it's more difficult. And because I'm trying to do this challenge in 4 months, I just didn't think I'd be able to do it in time, especially with all the fails that I would have in between each map potentially. So I just wanted to play it safe, and thankfully I did with Black Ops 3, and I got it done in my first attempt in 15 hours 47 minutes, which is slightly less than the fastest time that I thought I would have done it in. And it was time to go on to my arch nemesis of a map, BO3 Verrückt. Those of you who have watched my streams over the years will know that I have quite a long history with this map. It's actually one of my favourite maps on BO3 to play. And the thing is with this map, I have tens if not hundreds of hours of just strat testing on this map. Strat testing is where you use a mod menu in order to like get to round 100 or 150 and just practice the high round strat, you know, trying your best to learn what to do, how to deal with certain situations, just to improve your game knowledge really. So I definitely think I over-exaggerated. I think I've only got maybe like 20 to 30 hours, but it's still quite a lot of time, you know, just to strat test one map. And up until I think it was last year, my personal best on this map was only around 89. So I didn't even have 100 on this map. And that was still the case last year when I tried to do, I think, a similar challenge to this, which was like round 100 on every Treyarch map in 30 days. And I was on round 99 using classics only. I had 2 Alchem uses for round 99. And I still died on round 99. It was a really, really unfortunate death, but I was so pissed off at that. It was unbelievable. Because it's not like I had long left of the round. I maybe had like 1 to 2 minutes left before 100. And I fucked up at the end. I just completely screwed up big time. And I mean, I did get a little bit unfortunate and unlucky as well. But yeah, it was just really heartbreaking for me at the time. So now you guys who don't watch my streams are now caught up to why this map is like my arch nemesis. Yeah. And I don't really help myself out because I run the strategy a little bit differently to like the world record holder and all that kind of stuff, because they keep the mule stairs closed and they spawn in on the jug side, but I decide to spawn in on the QR side and keep the jug stairs closed. And the reason I do this is because it makes camping at the trap a little bit faster than if you have the stairs open. And it also means instead of shooting in order to get through the doorway, you actually wrap all the way around and go up through double tap to the doorway in order to escape. And it just means sometimes you can actually get away with shooting quite a lot less than the world record strategy way. But don't get me wrong, just because you shoot less doesn't mean it's easier. In fact, I would probably consider this strat harder. Verrückt on Black Ops 3 is really unforgiving. So let's get right into it. I would start off by restarting for my spawn point to be in the quick revive room, and then I'd stay in there till about round 4 or 5 using the Shiva to pick off any zombies that spawn in. And then I would make my way all the way through to the power room, probably on either round 6 or 7. And then because I'm still using the first box patch, I know it didn't work on that, but it does work on Verrückt, and I end up getting the Mark II monkeys and the WAF all out of the first box. And the reason this is so nice to have on all these BO3 maps is because fire sales activate whenever you move the first box. And so if you manage to get everything out of the first box, that means you don't have useless fire sales in your drop cycle, and you just can end up getting way more good drops like the max ammos, death machines, insta-kills, all that kind of stuff. And on a map like Verrückt, it's super nice to have this, just so that you can camp these early rounds a little bit longer than what you would normally be able to. And thankfully, the start of this map is actually very simple. You would just play in the power room until you got enough points to buy all your perks, which is about like round 11 or 12. And then you'd run down. I personally only want Speed Cola, Quick Revive and Juggernog because I get stamina up from the Wonder Fizz later on. And then you basically go back into the power room and you can camp there until anywhere from rounds 50 to about 65, maybe even higher, which is kind of incredible when you think about it. Because again, with only classic Gobblegums, I can't pack a punch on this map, which means I have a non-papped Wunderwaffe and a non-papped Mark II. And the fact that that's able to get me all the way to between rounds 50 and 65 is insane. So what I would be doing in the early rounds to play this map is I'd pretty much just be using the Mark II to kill them, because this would give me drops like insta-kills, death machines. Even double points are quite useful because of hitting the Gobblegum machine, which is right next to you in the power room, by the way. And then if I was running low on ammo, I'd be switching to my Wunderwaffe and using the Wunderwaffe in order to kill the zombies as well. And then from about the mid-30s onwards, I would basically be starting off with the Mark II and then immediately switching to the Wunderwaffe because the Mark II can't keep up with the spawn rate of the zombies. And then whenever I got the opportunity to do so, I would be using the Mark II after using the WAF just to try and get these other drops. And sometimes I'd get lucky, get an insta-kill or a death machine, and then I'd be able to get my max from that, and I wouldn't have to use an Alchem in like the 40s and early 50s. But other times I wasn't so lucky, and then obviously I'd have to use my Alchem in order to replenish my ammo. And by cycling my Gobblegums really well, to be honest, and getting my drops and all that kind of stuff, I was able to camp all the way until round 57, in which I got pushed out because I was running out of ammo, the zombies were crowding me, and yeah, I just had to leave. And honestly, that's kind of perfect timing because I will have just about reached the max spawn rate probably on this game. I know on Black Ops 1 it's around 56, so I'm going to assume that it's 56 on like Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 3. And at this point, you can just run the trap strategy, which again is pretty difficult. So the way I would run this strategy is like this. I would be standing ready by the double tap trap if it was ready to be switched on, and then as the round was starting, I would switch it on and stand by the trap. And the reason you want to do this is because the zombies coming from that barrier are the only zombies that are able to get to you, because there are trap switches both sides, and that's the only window in this area. And the way this strategy works is pretty weird, and it's somewhat akin to the fire trap strategy from Black Ops 1. And what happens here is the electric trap's hitbox is just slightly outward to the right hand side, and this allows the zombie's hitbox to just about get hit by it, allowing you to basically camp there as long as you keep pushing yourself forwards, because the zombies will push you backwards. And if the zombies hit you backwards far enough, they then won't get hit by the hitbox of the trap, and they will just start hitting you like normal. And back when this strategy first became a thing, I remember there being arguments to whether this should be allowed or not, if it's legit, because, you know, some people consider it a glitch. I would personally consider it an exploit. And it's not like you're invincible. Again, you've got something like the fire trap, which I would argue is way more overpowered than this. But anyway, this is where the fun part kicks in. When the trap switches off, you then go behind yourself out the doorway where the KRM is, and you basically want to make your way slowly to the doorway where the double tap machine is. And once you get like kind of halfway to the exit, you want to then sprint and basically hope that there's no zombie at the doorway. Sometimes there will be, but a lot of the time you can actually just get past. And if there is a zombie at the doorway just as you're getting there, you can kind of do a little cutback at the very back of the room, which allows you to try and save a shot. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And at this point, once you've made it through the doorway, if you haven't had to shoot a waft shot, then that's great. You just want to do a bunch of cutbacks up at the top here, and then slowly make your way through the different rooms. So make your way through the power room, the kitchen, the speed cola room, and finally into the speed cola trap area. And I would recommend that you look at the zombies when doing this, because if you don't, sometimes they can despawn. I mean, sometimes they'll despawn anyway, but they've got a much less likely chance if you look at them. And then once you've got a line just like this, you want to pretty much go to the trap and switch it on, and then kind of hug the wall a little bit just to make sure that they do die. Because the first couple of zombies that go through the trap, sometimes they go in a little too quick and they don't actually die by the trap. And if that happens, you can just work your way around them. But something I want to point out that is very important when running this strategy, you want to wait until all of the zombies have run through the trap. And I mean like died to the trap. Because if you leave a little bit early and there are still zombies dying to the trap, like let's say you're going through the smaller exit of the trap and the zombies are dying in the bigger one, you can actually just die. you'll just go down by running through the trap, even though you haven't been hit or anything. And this is just because there's a really weird bug in the game that just lets this happen. I really have no idea why, but yeah, it's just something that can happen when, you know, just running the zombies through this trap. And I don't know if it's just specific to Verrückt, or if it can happen with other traps on different maps. But yeah, it's a thing that can happen. But I think it's only with traps that have like 2 exits, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, once you've killed the whole horde with the trap, I personally like exiting through the smaller doorway. You can exit through the big doorway if you really want to, but I would exit through there because it would give me more time to get to the speed cola room, because the zombies spawn really, really quick and can cut you off so fast if you're not paying attention. And then at this point, I would be walking all the way through back to where the power room is. And as soon as I reach the power room, I would then sprint all the way back to the other trap by double tap. And then the trap should just about be ready to be switched on again. And you would repeat this whole process again. Now, a couple of things to note is that if I had to shoot a waft shot in order to get out of the double tap area, I would pretty much immediately run into the kitchen to try and despawn any remaining zombies that were a bit too far away. so that they would spawn either in the kitchen, the speed collar room, or the power room, and this was just to make things a little bit tidier. And that way I'd know pretty much where the zombies were going to be spawning from, instead of potentially having a bunch of late spawns and then respawns where I wasn't particularly expecting them, all that kind of stuff. And then finally, whenever I had an alchem, I would basically be using all my ammo in the kitchen, and then use the alchem in order to get my bullets back, as well as just kill quite a bit faster. Alchem save, I think it's like 1.5 minutes or like 2.5 minutes per use. And this is because although the kitchen has been opened both ways, it is still a 3 spawn location, and it is still very, very fast. But something to note when I was using my alchem is about 3/4 of the way through using the alchem, I would then be making my way to the doorway so that I could escape the kitchen with relative ease. Now, sometimes this was quite a bit sketchy because the BO3 WAF isn't really the best wonder weapon to help you escape, but it's all you've got. And so it was kind of sketchy sometimes, but overall it was okay. So in this first game, I managed to make it all the way to round 65 without taking a single down, which was really insane for me because I normally take a down in the early rounds, like before 50, when camping, because the Mark II has some insane splashback damage. Like, you'll just be chilling using the Mark II, and then all of a sudden a zombie will get a little bit too close, it'll slap you once, and you'll be dead because you shot the Mark II at the same time, and it was actually the Mark II that killed you and not the zombie. But unfortunately, my first down on round 65 was actually when I was camping with an alchem and not when I was running the trap strategy. And the reason I downed here was because I activated my alchem on my last shot of the WAF. So I was down to 2-0. I then popped my alchem after I shot the second to last shot. So I was now on 1-0. And then as I was on 1-0, I shot in order to try and get my ammo back. And because I had no ammo in my reserves when I shot, it made me switch to my STG. And the WAF didn't kill the zombies that I really needed it to. It just stunned them. And yeah, I just ended up taking a very unfortunate down there. And so from that point onwards, I made sure to activate my alchem after my third shot had been used, instead of my second to last shot. My third to last shot, that is. So I would be using my alchem after I shot my third to last shot. So 2-0 in my WAF now at this point. And then when I shot my second to last shot, I would have 1-0. But because I've still got a bullet there, my reserves fill up from the alchem. And so that would never happen again. And now, unfortunately, on round 73, I end up taking my second down in this game. And the reason for this down is a little bit weird. So when you unpause the game, it actually kind of jolts you when you decide to move. Like, if you decide to move immediately after you unpause the game, you'll jolt in that direction instead of maybe moving very slightly like you want to. And that's what happened when I was camping at the double tap trap. And I basically went face first into the trap. I was a little bit panicked and didn't really know what to do, and I just ended up going down, which was unfortunate, but I figured it out. I don't know if it was in that game or my next one. I figured out the reason for it, and so I just made sure to not jolt or like move in any direction after unpausing. And then, unfortunately, I ended up taking a third down on round 94, and I've only just really looked back at this right now, and what looked like happened is I shot the WAF as I was trying to exit the room initially, and the WAF shot only killed one zombie. It didn't chain to any of the others, so I got slapped twice from behind me, and then twice from in front of me, and then a third time just as I was shooting my next WAF shot. So it was a really unfortunate down there when I was camping. But again, I didn't really die to the strategy, like the trap strategy. I don't really consider the one that I took where I jolted into the trap as a down due to the strategy. And so I was just downing in like really ridiculous ways in this game. And so, of course, on round 97, I don't pay attention to when the trap is going off. And I end up getting quadruple slapped just as the trap had switched off. Because I looked away from my screen to look at my chat just at that very moment. It was really unfortunate timing. I shot the one zombie with the waff and it hit. I tried shooting the next zombie that was going to trap me and I missed. And I died devastatingly on round 97 on BO3 Verrückt. But as annoyed as I was at dying once again in the late 90s, I was not going to give up that easily, and I immediately started another game up. Even though that last game was 7 hours long, I immediately started another one up and got all the way past camping, and I think I camped all the way to 58 in this game as well. And I managed to play all the way until around 72 before I decided it was time for me to get off for the night. And I resumed the game the following day. Now, when I got back on, things were looking pretty good. I was still flawless, and I was all the way up until around 78, in which within, I think, the first hour of when I got back on, I unfortunately took a down. I got stuck just on the wall here by double tap, and it was just a super unlucky down to get stuck there. I don't think I've ever had a down like that before. Just very unfortunate. However, it wasn't until my second down on round 84 that I became a little bit demotivated and a little bit negative. Because on round 84, this is the worst mistake I think I've ever made playing zombies. And basically, when you camp with an Alchem, in order to reload the WAF, you do something called a nade cancel, which is, as you're just after you've reloaded the WAF, you would pull out a grenade and then insta swap to your weapon in order to bring it back out, and it's faster than just letting the animation play itself. But I had unfortunately let the grenade go this time instead of cancelling it, and I ended up throwing it on the ground very close to myself. I ended up getting hit, I think, 3 times, and then the grenade killed me. And at this point, I was just really disappointed in myself. And yeah, I just had to try and keep going. And honestly, at this point, I did recover quite well. Because all the way until round 96, I didn't take any more downs. But on 96, this was running the trap strategy this time. And for some reason, I thought I could get through a very small gap in the doorway where you have to exit the area, and I just didn't. I was never going to get through there. I don't know what I was thinking. I should have just shot a waff shot. I still had 7 bullets left. But yeah, ended up taking my 3rd down there, and I was beginning to think I was going to fully die in the late 90s once again. But this time, luck was actually on my side. And before round 100, I managed to get 2 more Alchems, which means 4 more Alchem activations. And I saved one of them, or at least 2 activations, for round 99, in which after 8 minutes of running the trap strategy, I camped the entire rest of that round with the Alchem. And it took me all the way through to the end of the round, clearing round 100 in about 7 hours. And finally, at this point, it felt like I'd broken the curse of dying in the late 90s on this map. It was my very first 100 using classic Gobblegums on this map, and I was over the moon. I was really happy. But the celebrations didn't last too long, as I would immediately go straight over to Shi No Numa, which is probably the opposite of Verrückt, as I don't think I've really practiced this map at all. Maybe very slightly, but this is my least played map on Black Ops 3. And since I performed not that great on a map that I had played quite a lot, especially in Strat Tester, I wasn't feeling too confident going into Shi No Numa. So to this point in the game, this would be the third iteration of Shi no Numa, just like Verrückt was the third one as well. But this is the Shi no Numa I have the least amount of experience on, and the lowest round on, being only a PB of 84 before attempting this round 100. And although all of the other Shi no Numas are kind of easy, really, in comparison, don't be fooled by this one. This round 100 is potentially one of the hardest on BO3 in general. In fact, I'd probably either put it first or second, just before or after Verrückt. But like all the other maps I've played before this, I would start the game off in the spawn room, using the Shiva in order to kill with, and basically stay there until round 5 or 6, where I would leave and then hit the box. And because I still have the first box patch on, I would get the Mark II monkeys and the Wunderwaffe all from the first 3 hits of the box. And this is where the strategy for the early game differs greatly from the one I did on Black Ops 1 Shi no Numa. And this is because I would be playing in storage pretty much all the way until the mid-60s. That's right, you can camp in this room until about round 65. You can even do it all the way into the early 70s, and this is because of the ability of using alchems as well as dog rounds in between. And not only that, you can also basically kill most of the zombies just with the trap you have inside the room that kills most of the zombies outside the room, and it's just a really awesome just way to camp on this map. And in theory, because you've got a trap, it should make the early round camping a little bit easier, right? Unfortunately for me, that's not the case. But anyway, since I have the Mark II and WAF now, I'll basically be playing in storage just until I get enough points in order to run around the map and get my perks. And the really cool thing about BO3 Shi no Numa is you don't need to keep any doors closed like you do on BO1. There might be some preferences to keeping doors closed, maybe to make a strategy a little bit faster or something like that. But I think actually for the most part you want to have the doors open because it makes the strat faster. But all in all, you don't need any of the doors closed for safety or spawns or anything like that. It's all just open everything up. It's great. And so once more, from about rounds 10 to 20, I'd be getting all of my perks and then staying in storage for the early rounds. And the way I would camp the early rounds is I would pretty much mainly be using the Mark II at this doorway and then to the right whenever I had zombies from the inside coming at me. And this worked out pretty well. Although in the late 20s to early 30s, I did need to start using the Wunderwaffe just in order to help me, you know, stay in the area, because the Mark II was starting to fall off a little bit. And from about the mid-30s, I would then start using the trap in order to help me conserve my ammo quite a bit more. And this is because, like I stated earlier, most of the spawns come from outside of the storage hut, and so you only have to train up the zombies inside just a little bit, or you can actually just kill them with the Mark II as they're coming out, because the Mark II can deal with them quite easily. And camping here in theory should be a lot easier than camping in the power room with the Mark II and WAF on Verrückt. But unfortunately for me, that just wasn't the case, and I ended up taking my first down here on round 56. And this is honestly just because I got way too greedy with my ammo, and I was trying to stretch camping as far as I can, even though I literally have an alchem, so I could have just used that. But yeah, I got greedy with my WAF, didn't want to shoot it, and died because of it. So in order to recover, I just went to the respective huts immediately. Juggernog unfortunately being in the fishing hut, which is actually really difficult to kind of get out of. So I needed to make sure to have monkeys on me so I could recover from that area. But the other perks, I wouldn't get stam until the next dog round pretty much. But Speed Cola and Quick Revive I could get quite easily. And you'd think after this first relatively early down that I would have learnt my lesson about being greedy, but nope. I still was camping on round 62, but honestly this wasn't that much out of greed. But I shot my WAF this time, unfortunately just stunned the zombies, and I still got trapped by the perk machine. And yeah, at this point I was dead. I don't actually know if it just stunned the zombies or if it was zombies running in from behind, and I just didn't really see that. I was a little bit tired at this point, to be fair, so it could have been either. And then finally I managed to get to round 66, and this was the first time I was pretty much running the trap strategy. And after only a couple of minutes of running it, I make the dumbest decision ever, and I end up basically standing up when the flogger trap is still spinning. This was just because I was really tired at the time, so I end up standing up in the middle of the trap and going down. And because I took 3 downs before 70, I thought, fuck this, I'm just gonna quit. So I get on the next day and I'm feeling a little bit more confident. I know a little bit more about what I'm doing, but unfortunately I still managed to take my first down, this time on round 57 while camping. And I think what happened is a bunch of the zombies just got kind of stuck on the corner. As I shot the waft, they probably got stunned, and as I was trying to make my way back through here, I just ended up getting cut off by a bunch of them and got slapped really fast, so I ended up dying. And after this down, I decided to not pick quick revive back up because I didn't want another down before 70 really. And so I was just running with the 3 perks, and on round 63 something quite weird happened. I end up being forced out of the room and I throw a monkey, and I think I get a bunch of lace spawners from inside the hut, because as the monkey explodes, I just see I'm surrounded by like 5 zombies, and I was just not expecting that at all, and I end up taking my second down on this game and my death in this game on round 63. So at this point I was thinking, you know, I've died twice now before even really getting to run the trap strategy. I kind of really need to just pull out my A game and actually you know, be able to camp here just until like the spawns are good enough, or until I don't feel comfortable, and then I just need to really practice running the trap strat. So on my third attempt, I pretty much set up the exact same way as my other games, and I'm feeling pretty confident this time about camping, at least until round 50, where I end up getting trapped and I shoot the waft, and unfortunately I shoot it just a bit too far away from the zombies, and it just completely fails, and I take my first down in the earliest I've ever taken it during this challenge on round 50. So just like the previous game, once I managed to recover from this down, I decided to not buy quick revive until I know I was going to be running the trap strat for the first time. But thankfully in this game, finally, on my third attempt, I managed to get past camping, and on round 65 I ran the trap strategy for the very first time in this challenge really. And this strategy is by far, I think, one of the most enjoyable strategies in the game, and I can't choose really between this strategy or Varuk being my favorite. I think honestly Shino might just overtake it, because I had a really fun time running this strat. So to run this strategy, you're going to start off in either of the huts, either storage or comm room, and you're basically going to train in here with the zombies coming out of the barriers until the trap is about to switch off or after it has switched off. If you see an opening after about 30 seconds of the trap being on, you can like just run through the trap. Then after running through the trap, you want to just slowly make your way to the flogger trap. And this is because the flogger is going to kill an extra horde again, instead of just running straight to the next electric trap. And because you're making your way there slowly, you will have the full horde of zombies on you. You just want to make sure you do a few like little cutbacks here and there, just to make sure that the zombies are all around you and not like too far away, so that they end up like spawning behind you at some point because they've despawned. But once you've got all the zombies together, you want to make your way through to the flogger, and you want to sprint when you're at the doorway from the main hut to the flogger. You want to switch the flogger on before you go through to the other side of the flogger, and then you just want to wait until all the zombies have died. And now at this point, you just want to wait a few seconds for like all the zombies to spawn around you, and wait for like 1 or 2 zombies to come through the flogger on the other side. And this is because what you're going to do is you have to prone just on that side of the flogger so you don't die by the flogger. And what will happen is the zombies behind you will actually push you a little bit through the flogger. They can hit you a little bit, but they shouldn't hit you more than about 2 times, maybe 3 at most. And this way you'll go under the flogger a little bit faster, and you'll be able to stand up quicker, allowing you to basically move on and move back to the next trap. And so the next trap in this case will be the comm room trap, and you don't have to wait for all the zombies to like gather around. You can just immediately run straight through to the trap at this point and kill them immediately with the trap. You just want to run straight there, switch the trap on, and the zombies will start running through. And at this point you want to do the same thing at as you did at the other trap. You want to stay in the area till about 30 seconds or until the trap is switched off, and then you want to make your way back slowly again to the flogger, do the flogger part, and then just rinse and repeat pretty much. Now, something to note about the electric traps on Shi No Numa and effects in general is that at about round 60, maybe even a little bit before, you'll notice that there's no like trap lines to show the electricity and to show that the trap is on. And this is because for some reason, after about like an hour and a half to 2 hours of this map just running, the effects just disappear. They're just gone. No idea why. They just disappear, really. Just so weird. And this is good and bad, because on the one hand you can't really tell the trap's on other than listening for the little like buzzing noise that you have when the trap is on. But on the good side is that you can kind of see a little bit clearer as to how many zombies you know, gonna be coming through the trap, so you can kind of see whether or not you can exit before the trap switches off. So it's got its pros and cons, and in my opinion I personally prefer it. And something else to note, and this is about the flogger trap, is you'll notice on the World at War version you can just run straight through the trap without having to, you know, crouch or prone. And then on the BO1 version you actually have to crouch, because if you try and run through it you'll die. On the BO3 version you have to prone. I think if you get the timing completely right you can actually slide through the trap, but I personally wouldn't recommend it. And I would definitely say, you know, proning is the safest way. You can't crouch underneath this trap this time. You have to prone. So, as you can see with this strategy, you actually have a little bit of variety with moving around to different traps and different areas, which is probably one of the reasons I enjoy it quite a lot more. And I think because I was enjoying this strategy so much, I actually just managed to go all the way straight past my PB, all the way to around 86 before I take my second down here. And once again, it's because I'm trying to camp in the storage hut and I'm getting too greedy with my ammo once again instead of shooting when I should have. And because of that, I just end up getting caught by a bunch of different zombies, get slapped a shit ton, and I end up taking my second down on around 86, which to get a new PB before, you know, I've even taken all my downs is incredible. But let me tell you a little bit about why I was even trying to camp in the first place. So as you can see in the clip, I have 2 alchems still. And this is because at the end of each round, I would still be hitting the Gobblegum machine in order to get these alchems. And something that makes this map even cooler is that you can actually go back and camp one of these rounds in the late 80s, early 90s, I think all the way up until maybe even 100. I'm not too sure. But you can use 2 alchem activations on these rounds and you can camp the entire round. And the way you can do this is by switching the trap on initially, hoarding up the zombies and maybe using 1 or 2 off shots. Then once the trap is deactivated, you'll use like your full WAF going down to about 3 and 2, 3 and 1 in your WAF. Then by that point, the trap should be ready again to switch on. So you'll switch the trap on again, and then only use like those 1 or 2 waft shots for the zombies in the room when the trap is on. Then when the trap is off, you can then use your alchem in order to, you know, kill all the zombies and get your ammo back. And this alchem will basically last you until the trap is ready to be switched on again, which then means you can just repeat the process of use the trap, use only a couple of shots, and when the trap's off, use your waft shots to go down to 3 and 2, 3 and 1, and then use the trap again, and then keep going until the trap's off to use your alchem again. And you can see how you're able to just camp these entire rounds. And I don't know, to me it just gives you a sense of feeling of something a little bit fresh compared to either just camping all the way or training all the way. It gives you a bit of both. It gives you some variety because you don't have to camp if you don't want to. But it's just super nice to have that choice and that variety in these higher rounds. But anyway, round 86, I recover after my down, and I pretty much camp that round, I'm pretty sure, afterwards. Just making sure to not be as greedy when camping. But unfortunately, this mindset didn't extend to the trap strategy, where on round 94, I get stuck by just 2 zombies. I should have just shot the waff or even used one of my anywhere but here's. I would have been completely fine. But instead, I get greedy with my ammo, and I take yet another down, being my 3rd down. And at this point, I was starting to get a little bit worried that it was going to turn into another Verrückt. So I go ahead and get all my perks back, and I start paying a lot more attention to my game. I think I closed down my chat just so I could fully focus. I was also hoping that luck would be on my side this time, because I had a small chance that I could get 95 and then 99 dogs, which would save me an extra round of training and, you know, stress essentially. But luck wasn't in my cards, at least for dog rounds, as on round 95 I got no dogs, which meant I was once again cursed with round 96 dogs. So on round 97 I would end up just running the trap strat again. On round 98 I did have 2 alchems, and on round 99 I did have the chance, I had a 2 in 5 chance of getting the alchem again in order to pretty much camp round 99. But come on, was I ever gonna get that lucky? No, of course not. Of course it would never make it that easy for me. And so on round 99, I had to run the trap strat again. But I did in fact manage to get to round 100. And I managed to do it in just under 7 hours, being 6 hours and 55 minutes to round 100. I was super hyped that I managed to get this done, because that was the last BO3 map that I was concerned with that was going to take me a long time to get, because I hadn't got 100 on it before. Every other map from here, I have actually been to round 100 on, including like IW and World War II. So, as far as I was concerned, it was smooth sailing. And with that, it was time for me to go over to one of my all-time favorite maps, Kino der Toten. So Kino and BO3, although it's not my favorite version of Kino, I actually really enjoy the high round strategy on this map. And I think part of the reason for that is it is somewhat reminiscent of the Black Ops 1 version of Kino, where you can stand behind the trap in order to clear out the high rounds, while also then using the thunder gun and stuff in order to help you force out, or in this case you'd use you know, dead wire on a weapon. But it just has that little bit of variety, which I really like in zombies, that you can kind of switch up the strategies just a little bit, and that's why it's one of my favorite maps, even on Black Ops 3. But unfortunately, to round 100, my favorite part of the strategy isn't really necessary, because you can just play in the alley all the way until 100, and especially since I had the first box patch on, it meant I didn't have any fire cells in my drop cycle, which meant I could just, you know, keep camping and like training in the alley all the way until 100. And so once more, I would start off in the spawn room. I would grab the Shiva, and then I would stay in the spawn room until my first dog round. I then made my way into the fire trap room, and hit the box for my weapons, in which I got the Thundergun and Monkeys. And it was actually meant to be the VMP as my third weapon, so I ended up getting a Mark II on my 4th hit, and that was genuinely just luck based. That wasn't even you know, a predetermined thing from the box patch. It's not in the box patch, not for Kino anyway. And so I'd get these weapons, and then I'd go into the alley for a round. Then on the next dog round, I'd make my way around the map, switch on the power, grab Juggernog, and then I'd basically be playing in the alley at this point. And honestly, after just a few more rounds of having the Mark II, I thought, you know what, I don't really want it, so I picked up the VMP off the wall for the Mark II. And then on about like round 16, 17, I decided to go on Pack-a-Punch. Thankfully, on my first trip, I managed to get Deadwire on my VMP, and obviously I had my Thundergun Pack-a-Punch, and this was basically it. I was set up because I had my 4 perks. I actually chose Speed Cola over Stamina Up this time. And this is because I just had full intention of playing Alley the whole way, which meant I didn't really need Stamina Up. It wasn't that important because, you know, using the Alchems and stuff, you'd be reloading the Thundergun a lot, and that thing is really slow to reload. So in order to camp the Alley, I say camp because you kind of just train a little bit. It's a little bit reminiscent of Power Strat on Ascension, where you kind of do this little half horde thing, and then you shoot the Thundergun at the zombies for the early rounds. Because you've got Alchems, you've got max ammos, you know, you've got drops like Death Machines and insta-kills. So you can really just spam the ammo a little bit like this, instead of doing like full hoarding. And so you'll be seeing me trained by the stairs, which is right next to the Gobblegun machine, and just doing these half hordes and shooting the zombies with the Thundergun. And I'm pretty sure I did this all the way up until about like mid 50s, early 60s. In fact, I think I was doing this all the way until like the mid 70s potentially. And this was honestly going pretty well. The strat is really fast, and I was on round 80 in 2.5 hours. So things were going incredibly smooth. And this was until round 81, where I ended up taking my first down. And honestly, I'm not too sure what happened here, but it looks like the Thundergun didn't kill some of the zombies on the right when I was in this corner. Even though I think it should have, really. But I guess I must have shot it in such a way where the Thundergun blast kind of got split a little bit by the little wooden post on the right hand side, and it didn't kill all of the zombies. And so as I was trying to get out, I got slapped a bunch of times and went down. Really unfortunate down, but yeah. All I had to do to recover was just throw a monkey and just go and get all the rest of my perks back, to be honest. So once I'd got all my perks back, I would go back into the alley and just start training them again. And at this point in the game, instead of just shooting the Thundergun, I was also trying to train them around and use my Deadwire in order to get a few extra kills so that I could carry some ammo over to the next round, because maybe I had like a max ammo on that round, for example. And this meant I didn't need to use my Alchem immediately. I could kind of keep my Alchem for when I needed it on a no ammo round. But in doing this, I unfortunately took another down on round 85, and I chalked the reason for this down really down to me not having stamina up, and I had speed cola instead. So for this set of recovery of perks, I decided to go to the Wonder Fizz and grab stamina up over speed cola. And looking back, I think that was definitely the right call to make, and I should have done it from the very start of the game. It was what I was comfortable with doing, because I'd always played with stamina up over speed cola whenever I played this map, including for my round 200 game. And thanks to this, I managed to pretty much do this little full hoarding thing around the stairs all the way until round 97, in which I didn't have an Alchem anymore. But instead of going and running the main trap strategy on this map, I decided I'd stick around in the alley to see if I could get any more Alchems, maybe on 98 or 99. And so what I was doing is just training and using Deadwire by the gate in the alley. So on round 98 and 99, I hit the Gobblegun both times, but unfortunately I was not lucky enough to get myself an Alchem. And so I just finished the last round in the alley, training by the gate. And rounds were getting pretty long at this point. They were starting to take about 10 minutes each round because I wasn't able to spam my Thundergun as much. But all in all, Kino was a very kind of chill, easy map. I did take those 2 downs, which was unfortunate, but I managed to get to round 100 in about 4 hours and like 17 minutes. And because Kino was done so quickly, I immediately went over to the next map, which was Black Ops 3 Ascension. Ascension is classed as probably the easiest map on Black Ops 3, and there's good reason for that. And that's because the overall high round strategy of using Deadwire Unturned in the spawn room is probably the easiest way of getting to round 100 that there is in Black Ops 3. With that being said though, there are some difficult strategies that you can do if you do want a bit of a challenge on this map, and that is training with Deadwire Unturned in the power room. Obviously, with me only going to round 100, I should be just good enough to pretty much camp or, you know, do this 3/4 horde training in the power room all the way until 100, but you never know what might happen. I would start the map off in, surprise surprise, the same fashion as pretty much all the other maps, where I would buy the Shiva off of the wall, I would buy Quick Revive in the spawn room, and I would play in the spawn room until the end of round 4, and then make my way out of the spawn room, and this time I would be going into the power room. At this point I would switch the power on, and I would hit the box in order to get my Gershes and Thundergun. And this box patch also gives you a Weevil. This is because it's better to have like a very fast firing rate weapon with a lot of ammo, for using like Deadwire Unturned or something like that in the power room, rather than like a Shiva, because you're gonna go and play spawn afterwards. Since I had no intention of playing spawn, I didn't need the Shiva. And so for the first couple of monkey rounds, all I had to protect was my Quick Revive perk, and I would be protecting it so much so that I would get a free perk bottle from the monkeys. Because for those of you who don't know, if you don't let the monkeys touch one of your perks, then you will be guaranteed a perk bottle from the monkeys. And so on round 9, I ended up getting my monkeys, and I got Double Tap as my first free perk, which is actually really nice. And the reason that this is quite nice is because Double Tap doesn't have a perk machine on the map, which means I still only have to protect Quick Revive come the next monkey round. And so that's exactly what I did on round 13, but instead of killing all those monkeys right then and there, I would save one of the monkeys and then run around the map and grab Mule Kick and Speed Cola. And this is because I want both of these perks while I'm playing power, and I would like to try and get Juggernog locked while I play this game. And what that means is, because I haven't opened anywhere up to Juggernog in this game so far, the monkeys can't get to it because they have no open pathway to get there, which means the only perks that my monkeys can attack at the moment would be Quick Revive, Mule Kick and Speed Cola. But the problem with doing this is the fact that you have to get lucky enough in order to get Juggernog as a free perk. But thankfully on round 13, that's exactly what happened. Now I'm not sure if that's because of Jumpy's camo patch, the version I was using, of course, for modders, which gives me first box patch. But either way, I was just very happy that I got this, and I was still going for the extra perks, and somehow I managed to get stamina up on either round 17 or 18. And that's also kind of because of another benefit of having Mule Kick and Speed Cola instead of, you know, stamina up first. And that's because with Speed Cola and Mule Kick being on the same side, if all the monkeys go to those two perks, then you're completely fine. You can just switch the trap on, wait for a couple of the monkeys to spawn on that side, shoot them with the Thundergun, and then that's your perks protected and you can get a free perk out of it. Something else to note with the monkey mechanics is that when you have two perks that the monkeys can go for, or even more than that. Let's say you have 4 perks that the monkeys can go for. They will only choose 2 of those perks. That's until they've taken like those perks. So in my game, for example, I have Quick Revive, Speed Cola, Mule Kick, and Stamina Up that they can go and attack, because those are the perks that they're able to go and attack. But they can only attack 2 of them at one time. So if they went for Speed Cola and Mule Kick, then I know for a fact that they wouldn't be going to Quick Revive and Stamina Up, and I can just stay over that area and protect those perks. This is the reason that I've never really understood why people hate the monkeys so much. Yes, they can take your perks, but if you understand how the mechanics work, you can very, very, very easily protect your perks as long as you keep a decent amount of Thundergun ammo on you, because unfortunately I do think that's the only way of killing them. I don't think that AATs work on the monkeys. Something else to note is that I did actually stop getting perk bottles from the monkeys after I got Stamina Up. And I'm not too sure why this is, because I know for a fact that there's still 2 more perks on the map that I could get, which would be Deadshot and Widow's Wine. I don't know if this is some bug in the game or what the deal is. Maybe it's because Juggernaut's still locked off or something, because I swear in like one of my 200 runs I actually opened up to Jug and I was able to get all my perks. Just very weird kind of bug. Thankfully, neither of those perks I wanted. Like, I didn't want Widows. It's really annoying to play with in this area. So, yeah, at this point, I was set up. I just needed to go and pack a punch. So I'd go around to all of the landers, flying them back into spawn. And once I'd done the 3 landers, I'd go back into power, press the button, and then I was ready to pack a punch. And as well as having my Weevil, I decided to pap a HVK, as it's got quite a bit of ammo and it's pretty fast firing, and I thought it was just a really good weapon to have. Although looking back, I think the Kuda would have been just as good, and also the Kuda is a closer wall buy to power, so that would have been another bonus. But anyway, from about rounds 20 to 50, I'd pretty much be shooting the Thundergun quite a lot, and then from like 50 onwards I'd probably start doing the half to 3/4 hoarding of the zombies. And so I'd be doing this half to 3/4 hoarding of the zombies until I got my first few drops, in which if I got a death machine, I would basically be shooting all 3 of the spawns with the death machine, and the same with the insta-kill, and then I was basically hoping to get a max just so I didn't have to use my alchem. And another benefit of playing in the power room is that you don't have carpenters, which means I would be on a 5 drop cycle for the entire time I play in here. And as I've spoken about before, that means more max ammos, more insta-kills, and more death machines. So if I'm being really honest, I don't think I had trouble with ammo really until the 80s, which is pretty crazy all things considered. And let's say, for example, I didn't want to use my alchems. What I would do is I would make sure I had like 4 and 4 or 4 and 8 in my Thundergun, and then I would basically be doing this kind of little bit of training in the power area, which is super sketchy, but it's really fun to do. You can see me doing this a little bit on round 86, and you can see how sketchy it can be with how fast the spawns are in this room. Now I will say there is one pretty big problem with training in this room just in general, like even doing the 3/4 hoarding that I was doing for the entire match. And that's the fact that sometimes the zombies would get stuck in the downstairs barrier. And now this can be super annoying if you don't know how to deal with it, but there is actually, like I say, a fix for this. So the way you can unclog the spawn without actually making your way down the stairs is like after you shoot your Thundergun shot and it, for example, and you notice that the spawns aren't as fast or there's like no zombies coming up from the stairs. If you look at the grate down on your feet and shoot just a little bit before there, like angle it in a specific way, you're able to shoot through the floor and hit the zombies down below, and this will kill the zombies that are clogging up the barrier and potentially fixing the spawn. If it doesn't work the first time, just do it like another time and it should be fixed after that. But it's a super kind of cool mechanic, the fact that you can shoot through the floor, and that fixes the problem without you having to go down the stairs and potentially like risk going down, because you know, as you're going down the stairs you could still get more spawns up top even after you like unclog the spawns. It's just a really convenient thing in the game that you can shoot through the floor. And going back to Kino for a second, you can actually do this in the M8 room. You can shoot through the floor down at the zombies that are coming through the barrier, or like up the stairs or something like that. It's just a really cool mechanic. And I have to say, Ascension was being really kind to me. I was getting very lucky with my monkey rounds, and I ended up getting 94, 99 monkeys in my game, which just having 94 meant I got an extra monkey round. But having 99 as well was just the icing on top of the cake. It was fantastic. And not only were my monkey rounds incredibly good, between rounds 94 and 99, I obviously had 4 zombie rounds, so 95, 96, 97, and 98. And I had an alchem usage ready for every single one of these rounds. I didn't need an alchem use for every single one of the rounds, but it was just nice to have, because I got an alchem from like 94 or 95, and then I got another alchem, I think on 97 or 98, and it was just it was just incredible. And speaking of alchems, I was actually using these in a way I hadn't really done before, because I don't think I've always had Gershes whenever I played BO3 Ascension. But what you can do is you can go all the way down to 0 and 0 in your Thundergun, and then you can throw a Gersh out. You can see if you get any drops with the Gersh, and if you don't get your max, you can just pop your Alchem, and this will basically refill your Thundergun, so you can use all your ammo and still be completely fine. And I don't know why it took me until now to actually realize that, you know, I could have been doing this the whole time. In order to potentially save some of my alchem uses, but I'm glad I did kind of realize that now, and it's really nice to just use. But after 3 hours and 24 minutes, I managed to get to round 100 on this map. It was a really nice game of zombies to play, really. It was super fast, super easy, super good RNG, and the complete opposite of what my next map was going to be. Shangri-La on Black Ops 3 is probably the most aesthetically pleasing map. It is such a beautiful map, especially on PC, that it probably ranks up there as one of the best maps of all time just to look at. I mean, they got it almost completely perfect. Like, it just looks incredible. It's just a shame that they couldn't do that with the gameplay. Because if I'm being perfectly honest, it's like they didn't even test the map. It's got so many issues, and it just feels so clunky to play, especially with the way they made the baby gun. They did the baby gun dirty in this version, by the way. It is horrendous, and I'm going to show you exactly why. And all these issues, by the way, is the reason I probably rank Shangri-La the lowest out of all of the Chronicles maps, just simply because of how many issues there are. And the thing is, I recently got the No80 Nogum record on this map. I think I got like 106, and I was expecting to do this map with ease on my first attempt, but I was tired during my first attempt, so you'll see what happens. So once more, we start off in the spawn room, and I will be staying in there until the end of round 4. But there's a couple of different things this time. Those things being flipping drops in the first room, because what I would be looking for, just any drops, and then if I get a drop that isn't a double points, I would be letting the monkey take it and then flipping it into a double points and then killing the monkey afterwards, because that would give me an extra 1,000 points on a double points compared to 500 without the double points. And this meant at the end of round 4 I had about 8,000 points to just leave the spawn room and make my way around the waterfall side of the map. And once more, since the box was here, I'd be hitting the box and getting my baby gun and monkeys out of the first box. And then I ended up getting an ICR as my point weapon, and all the way until round 6 I would be playing at the waterfall, and then I would make my way all the way around to the CUDA room as soon as I could. and along the way I'd be picking up double tap and also switching the power on. So on about round 10 or so, I went around and got my other perks, which I would be using at Stamina Up and Juggernaut this time round. And then whenever I had enough points to do so, I would then go ahead and find the Pap Stone, which I think thanks to Jumpy's camo mod again, the For Modders patch, the Pap Stone cannot be in the tunnel behind me, which I need to keep closed in order to run the strategy, which meant I could pack a punch freely. So I would pack a punch my baby gun and the Kuda to get Deadwire on it. And I gotta say, this early round is definitely a little more hectic than the previous maps, as the spawns are still pretty quick, but because of how poorly made the baby gun is on Black Ops 3, it ends up making it so that you kind of get overrun quite quickly. And so all the way until like the early to mid 30s, I'd be kind of struggling to just kind of keep up with the spawn rate of the zombies. And this is where I get to talk about the first issue I have with this map, which is the main issue that I think most people would have who play high rounds, which is when you kill with the baby gun, like on the Black Ops 1 version, you can just run over the smaller zombies. But on Black Ops 3, it's like you get stuck on them, like when you're trying to run them over, you just get stuck, and it just feels like you're running through mud. Not even, because you kind of feel like you get pushed back a little bit as you're trying to like run over them. It's like you're hitting a brick wall. And this just makes every part of the strategy just feel worse, because it's not satisfying to do anymore. It was very satisfying on Black Ops 1 to just run over them if you needed to. Obviously, I would be using Semtexes, but if you wanted to run over them, you could, and it'd be no issue. But on the Black Ops 3 version, you just can't do that, and it just feels off to use. It doesn't feel nice at all. But until about the mid-40s, I'd mainly just be kind of spamming the baby gun at the spawns where the zombies come from. Like, so after they're out of the window, I'd shoot it at them, then run them over, and then do the same for the other spawns, or like the other directions the zombies are coming from. But unfortunately on round 51, I wasn't paying too much attention. I was very tired again at this point, because I'd just done Kino and Ascension in the same day, and I was trying to start on Shang. And I was trying to walk over to an insta-kill that was on the ground, and I didn't notice the monkey that was going to get there before me. The monkey takes it, and I focus on the monkey instead of the zombies around me, and I just get like quintuple slapped by the zombies around me. So just to get my perks back, I would go around the map, I'd throw a monkey when needed, and it's honestly really easy to get your perks back on Shang. And once I got all my perks back, I would just go back into the Kuda room to start training the zombies up again. And by the mid-50s, the way I'd be training the zombies is after I got the horde up, I would kill them at the back. But to get the horde initially, I would basically be doing this little loop around the Kuda room and killing them at the back by where the door is. Now this usually gets the whole horde of zombies, but if it doesn't, what I would do is I would just shoot a second time, or sometimes I would switch to my Kuda in order to deadwire the couple of zombies that didn't get hit by it. But the reason this loop works so well is because the zombies from the stone wall up at the top, they come out first. So as you're going around down below, it kind of drags the zombies up from the top to go the shorter distance, just as the zombies from the barrier down below are coming out. And then you do that little loop around, and by that point there should only be maybe 1 or 2 zombies coming from the stone wall barrier. And at that point it's just, you've got the whole horde, because the rest of the zombies come through the doorway from the Semtex area, well, the Semtex area on Black Ops 1. And you can just shoot down there and you'll kill most of the zombies. And the one really good thing about the baby gun, even on the Black Ops 3 version, is it's got so much ammo, and with alchems and stuff, you just don't even need to worry about if you get a max or not. On BO3 Shang, you're just completely fine. You can cycle your alchems to deal with that, and you'll just be able to go to round 100, probably even 120, with absolutely no issues. And in fact, I worked it out to be that if you have like 2 alchem uses, you can basically do this strategy on one of the rounds in the 180s just by using the baby gun. Like, you don't even need to use AATs. Now, I can't seem to find where it was, but I'm pretty sure I did take a second down. I don't know if it was earlier or later than my first down, but I'm pretty sure it was due to a fire zombie. But because of taking 2 downs to round 60 at this point, I thought it was best to get off because I was clearly quite tired. And so I decided to get on the next day. But by round 68, it was only half an hour in, into playing that day, and I took my 3rd down and I decided to just quit out. And my 3rd down was because I ran into a fire zombie and then got hit another 2 times. It was quite unfortunate, but yeah, I decided to deal with fire zombies a little bit differently after that. So after the round 68 quit, I fired up another game and pretty much played it identically to how I'd played it before, except on round 18 I decided to get myself an extra perk. Now, I generally don't really care about getting extra perks on BO3 Shang, mainly because if I go down, I won't have that extra perk anyway. But it is fairly simple to get an extra perk, especially in the early rounds. So if you do want extra perks, this is what I'd recommend to do. I'd recommend just killing the zombies with AATs until you get a max ammo. And then at this point you want to let one of the monkeys take that max ammo, and after one of the drops, because it switches to different drops every time, after one of them it will switch to a perk. And that perk will always show up after that drop, just with that specific max ammo that you're trying to flip into a perk. And so here, as you can see, it's after the double points. So I would throw a monkey bomb and then basically follow the monkey that's flipping my max ammo into a perk. I follow it up the water spout, and as I see it flipping from a double points into the perk bottle, you have a small window in order to actually kill it in order to get the perk bottle. And once again, I don't know if it was luck or if it's Jumpy's patch. I would assume it's his patch at this point, but I got lucky enough to get Speed Cola as my 5th perk. And Speed Cola would just help make things a little bit easier for me with reloading my baby gun a little bit faster, just so I had more of a window to reload, I guess. Unfortunately though, Speed Cola didn't last very long at all, and I ended up taking it down on round 50. And like I said, this is why I don't particularly bother with extra perks, because I don't get to keep them for very long. And the worst thing about this down is that it was so easily avoidable, because I could have been doing full hordes at this time, but I decided, no, let me use this shit version of the baby gun and try and, you know, just constantly keep killing the zombies. And that's what got me killed, really. And if I'm being honest, I don't even think it would have saved me that much time anyway. I think it would have just been better for me to just full horde the zombies, because it's not like it's a slow strategy either. But after that annoying down, I went and recovered, got all my perks back, and I started playing a little bit more seriously now. And I just want to kind of show off how I would be dealing with the fire zombie now, because I know he can be a major pain, and that's probably a reason why some of you don't even want to play this map. But he's super easy to deal with if you just deal with him like this. So what I would do is, immediately when I heard the fire zombie spawn in, because he has a unique spawning in sound, I would basically throw a monkey and immediately run over to him, because he does actually follow the monkey. But if you get close enough to him, he'll then explode. So I would go close enough to him, because he always spawns around the doorway where the Kuda is. And I would get him to explode there, and then run back into the room, and I would just chill there. Now obviously the zombies will still be dying by the fire as I'm in the Kuda room, but that's fine, because you can kind of just do cutbacks with dead wire with the Kuda if you want to, or you can use the baby gun. It doesn't really matter, you can still run the strat in a very similar fashion. Now you might be wondering, why do I hate this map so much? Like, you can kind of get over the fact that the baby gun isn't that great, but the baby gun isn't really the only issue, and there's an issue that's equally as annoying in my opinion, if not more so. So what begins to happen, probably about round 60 it can start, but it will happen many, many, many more times past that point. Especially, I think it happened to me 2 or 3 times in one round in the 90s, by the way. Just one round. And obviously it can happen many times more on many other rounds. But what would happen is the zombies will get stuck in the barrier, much like what can happen in the power room on Ascension. But unfortunately, what you can't do this time is just shoot through the wall, because it's in the other side of the room, in the frag grenade room, and they get caught in that left side barrier, and this happens so often, it's ridiculous. Like, it was getting to a point where I'd kind of be lucky past like round 80 if it didn't happen in that round. That's how often it was happening, which is way more often than it happened on BO3 Ascension. So what I figured I could do is, if I noticed this happening, I would kill all the zombies I had on me at that moment in time, and then very quickly just peek out of the doorway and shoot just in that little corner where they seem to pile up, and then immediately run back into the CUDA room as to not break spawns as much as I possibly could. Unfortunately, I did end up still breaking spawns, so I did activate Carpenters. But yeah, that's the best way I could see to deal with it. Really annoying, and again, another reason why I really don't like this map. And it's a real shame, because I kind of enjoy the strategy quite a lot. I enjoy actually the feel of this map. It's just those couple of little kinks that are just really, really shitty and just make the game feel a lot worse than what it should. So if they ever, you know, decided to fix that, obviously they're not going to now, but if there was maybe a patch for it from maybe a community developer or something who would do something like that, they could make the game, or sorry, they could make this map feel so much better. But anyway, back to my game now, and from rounds 50 to 75, it was starting to go a lot smoother, but on 75 I did end up taking my second down, and this was just after I'd run over most of the zombies in the horde with the baby gun. There were 2 zombies left, and what happened is I shot my dead wire weapon, and you know, it stunned the zombie, but it didn't actually chain to the zombie, and I'm thinking that's because it decided to chain to all of the baby zombies instead. And so this was just a really unfortunate down that I just didn't really see coming at all. I don't think it had happened to me until this moment. It was just very unfortunate, and I did mainly opt to use the baby gun in order to kill those extra couple of zombies, if they were that close to the horde, that is. And so from this point onward, I was just going through the rounds, cruising, and then when I got to the round 90s, I started getting frustrated because, like I said, those blockages in that barrier just kept happening more and more frequently, and it was starting to really piss me off. So I was really glad to see that my Gobblegum luck in the 90s was really good, being able to have, I think, 4 Alchem activations, so 2 Alchem Gobblegums, I think between like rounds 94 and 100. And all things considered, since it doesn't have any special rounds or anything, and the strategy isn't a camping strategy for once, I did manage to get to round 100 in a little under 6 hours, in 5 hours and 54 minutes. And with that map being out of the way and done, I could at this point safely say that it was 100% smooth sailing from here till the end of Black Ops 3, as there are only 2 maps left, and they are both very fast. And I would be starting off with the fastest of the 2, which would be BO3 Moon. Now, I feel like Moon is one of those maps you either love it or hate it. I actually really like Moon. It's a pretty fast map. The strategy is quite unique for Black Ops 3 anyway. Even though it is mainly camping, it is unique in the way you do camp the area. And this is because I would be using a dead wire in the window, as well as just the wonder weapon, which is the wave gun as well. But before we get into all of that, let's talk about how I even set up on this map. Because just like the Black Ops 1 version, you would spawn into no man's land on the BO3 version. However, unlike the BO1 version, I have the RK5 to start off with, as well as the M1911, and they both have full ammo in them, which makes this early segment of the map just infinitely easier. So I would kill the zombies until I got enough to buy Jug, and then I would still keep killing the zombies around the teleporter pad, just so I could get a few extra points before I teleported. And I'll be honest, I definitely played this very risky. I was red screened when I was teleporting, and I got hit another couple of times, and I was still red screened as I was coming into the spawn room on Moon. But by this point I had Jug and Quick Revive, and I'd already had half of my perks to set up with. So I went ahead and cleared round 1 in the spawn room, and immediately started running to buy the Kuda, and then straight into the 2 spawn spot, which I was going to be spending most of my time in. And this 2 spawn spot is just in the Tunnel 11 area, with the Tunnel 11 door actually closed. And I would be staying in the spawn room only until about round 5 or 6, when I unfortunately got the first excavator coming and trying to excavate. I think it was Tunnel 6 at the time. And so what I did is I went ahead and bought Double Tap, and then teleported back to Pack-a-Punch in order to get Speed Cola, just in the nick of time, so I could teleport back and hack the excavator so it could not excavate my only way back to the spawn room. During either round 5 or 6, by the way, I would also hit the box, and again, because I'm using Jumpy's patch, I would be able to get QEDs and the wave gun. And now the reason you want QEDs first is because I would be trying to get Stamina Up as a 5th perk. And for those of you who don't know, there's like a 1 or 2% chance every time you throw a QED at a perk machine with a perk you don't have, in order to actually get the perk. And I could not believe my luck, because the very first QED I threw got me Stamina Up from the perk machine, which was insane. Except of course it was guaranteed, because I was still using Jumpy's camo patch, which gave me first box and these perks, and I'm pretty sure I could confirm like all the other perks from the other games are guaranteed at this point. And for those of you wondering, I'll be sure to leave a link to both of Jumpy's camo packs in the description. There's one which is just the aesthetic camo pack without the patch, and then there's one with the patch, so if you just want to do high rounds and not speedruns, you can just use these, and it'll the BO3 community is very generous, and they allow first box patches to be used, which is why I'm using them here. So yeah, now I had Stamina Up, I was almost fully set up, because all I needed to do now was go and Pack-a-Punch my weapons, and also get Gersh devices from the mystery box. And for those of you who don't know how I got rid of the excavator, what you have to do is you have to hack it, which requires the hacker device, which you can pick up in the labs area. There are 6 different locations for it. I went ahead and searched 5 of them in order to get mine. They're very easy to see, and once you know the locations, you know, you'll never really forget them. And the hacker is going to be probably the most useful thing in this entire run. I'd say it's even more useful than Alchems, to be completely honest with you. But yeah, something else that's a little bit different in the BO3 version compared to the BO1, well, there's a couple. The first thing is you don't trap the astronaut in Tunnel 11, which means you don't have to constantly run and grab air, and you can stay by the barrier the entire time. This means that the BO3 version is faster. I mean, it's faster anyway with the spawn rate, but also the reason you can afford to do this is because Deadwire will actually kill the astronaut as long as you proc it on him. So whenever you hear him come through the doorway or in the doorway to where you are, you can just go ahead and shoot him with the Kuda, with Deadwire, proc Deadwire on him, and he'll just blow up and die. But I did unfortunately make a huge error when setting up, because I completely forgot that in the high round version, you know, this patch for the high round, the box will actually give you the Weevil before it gives you the Gersh devices. And what that meant for me is that, because I'd gone and Pack-a-Punched my Kuda and my wave gun already, I then had to go back and pack a bunch of the Kuda again because I had to swap it out for the Weevil just so I could get the Gershes before the first box patch disappeared. But by about round 20 I was fully set up and ready to just camp this area all the way until round 100. And so for the first like 30, 40, maybe even 50 rounds, I would just spam the wave gun into the side of the wall here, because this actually gets the left hand spawn and the drop down spawn on your right. And so that's actually the most optimal position to shoot the wave gun, as stupid as it kind of looks or sounds. And I would basically be using my alchems whenever I could. But if I didn't have an alchem, what I would need to do is throw a Gersh device close to the window and hope for a drop to come and appear. And if I did get lucky enough to get a drop, I would then go ahead and throw another Gersh, depending on how long the Gersh had been out for beforehand, and then hack the drop. And this is why I think the hacker is just the best thing out of everything in this map, because what you can do is you can hack every single drop apart from a max ammo, and that drop will then become a max ammo, and it costs you the low price of 4,500 points, which in like the 50s is basically nothing. So in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 100s, it's just pennies at that point. So from about round 50 onwards, what you'd see me doing occasionally is I would keep the barrier boarded as much as I could, and then after each wave gun shot, except for the last one in the mag, I would then be switching to my Kuda in order to proc Deadwire in the window, and then switching back to my wave gun just so I could get a few extra kills for every wave gun shot I was using. And this was just so I could extend the time needed before I had to go and throw another Gersh in order to get another drop, so I could just hold the window for longer. So yeah, pretty much all I had to do for Moon was whenever I had alchems, I could just spam the wave gun and not worry about, you know, getting any drops with the Gersh devices, because I could just pop my alchem and then I'd refill my ammo like that. But if I didn't have alchems, all I'd have to do is throw a Gersh device close to the window in order to get my drops. But there are some cases where you do get unlucky and you don't get a drop with any of your Gersh devices, and when that happens, all you have to do is train the zombies up and do a few cutbacks in this room. And then once you eventually get your drop after using Deadwire, you want to make sure you have the entire horde on you. You then want to shoot one of your 4 remaining wave gun shots at the horde of zombies, and then immediately start hacking the drop, as you have just enough time to hack the drop before the zombies manage to get to you from the drop down and the barrier. I will say, however, I played like an absolute idiot on round 79, and I took it down for it because I just wasn't paying attention like at all. I ended up going down because I just wasn't paying attention. A zombie came up to me, I was reloading in the middle of it, I'd already been slapped a couple of times from the barrier, and yeah, just took it down. Thankfully though, that was my only down of the entire game, and for the rest of the time I went completely flawless. And even with that one down around 79, I still managed to get to around 100 in a little over 3 hours. It was 3 hours and 6 minutes, and that's actually really fast for a map that has absolutely no special rounds whatsoever. But with Moon now over and done with, it was time for me to end Black Ops 3 with a bang on Origins. Origins is once again a fan favourite, and I think it became even more of a fan favourite on Black Ops 3 because Black Ops 3 is obviously one of the fan favourite games. So to have one of the fan favourite maps on a fan favourite game, I mean, you can put 2 and 2 together. And if I'm being honest, the high rounds on this map can be quite interesting depending on the strategy you play. And just recently, in fact, I managed to get to round 200 on this map. And it happens to be one of the longer round 200s because there's no special rounds, and the strategy I ran wasn't that quick. It ended up taking me a little over 40 hours. So as you can imagine, with having recently a round 200 on the map, it's actually my most recent round 200, and then going to do round 100 on it, I was feeling incredibly confident, and with good reason. So I would start off like normal in the spawn room, and I would stay until the end of round 5 this time, as I had 2 double points that I could use, and I ended up having about 9,000 or so points before I left the starting area. I would then make my way to Gen 2, because that's where the box was, and I was going to get the Mark II just in case, but really my main objective was to get monkeys, so I didn't have to worry about doing the G-strikes. And so on round 5, because it was snowing, I was going for all of the ice staff parts in just this one round on round 5. Unfortunately, I got really unlucky in the middle area for the part between gens 4 and 5, and the part spawn was in a dig site by gen 5, so I had to open up that extra barrier. So I unfortunately got super unlucky there, but I did thankfully get every single ice staff part on round 5, so I could just go ahead and whenever I got the gramophone, I could place it down in the ice tunnel and get the ice staff part that I need in order to build the ice staff. And while I was doing all this, I was also switching on the generators whenever I was at their respective area. So when I was at Gen 5, I would switch Gen 5 on, Gen 6 on, etc. And by round 8, I had all of the ice staff parts, so I went down to the bottom of excavation, built the ice staff. And alongside all of this, I turned all the pedestal things, I don't actually know what they're called, but I turned all of those little things to match the ice staff. Because unlike the Black Ops 2 version, I didn't need to get the wind staff just in case, because worst comes to the worst, I just train at the bottom of excavation with the Tommy gun with dead wire on it. And that's only if I did run out of ammo in the ice staff, where I have alchems now. So between rounds 9 and 14, I went ahead and made sure that all of the generators were switched on, and this was so I could pack a punch the Tommy gun in order to get dead wire on it. And once I had, because by this point I had done all the ice staff upgrade steps, all I needed to do was go into the crazy place and put it in the pedestal and make sure I got enough kills in order to upgrade it. And once I'd finally done that, I went back through the wind tunnel to pick up the gramophone, as at this point I was ready to start the high round strategy, which is the exact same strategy as the low round strategy. And unlike the Black Ops 2 version of this map, for the Black Ops 3 version, all you have to do is sit in the fire tunnel and shoot the ice staff in this spot right here, just next to the spawn. And this is actually the second fastest strat on the map, which I'll explain right now. Because I believe this spot is either a 2 spawn or a 3 spawn. I want to say it's a 2 spawn, but there might be more than one up top. But you have a direct spawn in front of you where the zombies will be spawning to the right out of that little window area. And because you're constantly able to kill these zombies on the right, it doesn't really matter the fact that the zombies up top take a little bit longer. Because as soon as they die, you could get more spawns on the right, and it's just insanely quick. But the reason it's the second fastest strat and not the fastest is because Generator 6 strategy on Black Ops 3 can be faster, but only if you constantly shoot the ground spawn on your left with dead wire. And I'm going to be completely honest, I really couldn't be bothered for that. I wanted a nice and chill round 100 for my final round 100 on Black Ops 3. So that's exactly what I did. I was chilling around here, rounds 10 past, 20, 30, 40, 50, and I was just breezing through the rounds. But something else to note that I didn't do in the Black Ops 3 version that I did do in the BO2 is I didn't go ahead and grab all of my perk slots. Because after digging a certain amount of dig sites up, what you get is something called the golden shovel, and with this golden shovel you can go around the map and find these red dig sites in the zombie blood mode. And if you do, and you find one of them and you dig it up, a perk bottle will be waiting there, and it is a perk slot. It's a permanent perk slot for that one particular game, which means you can get all 8 or 9 perks in the game. But you can only get 9 perks if you get every perk other than double tap, and then get double tap as the free reward from the reward box. But as you can see, I only have 5 perks this time, and that's because I just really didn't need any of the other perks, and I had full confidence in myself that I would be able to get to round 100 with less than 3 downs. And although Dead Wire is a nice little extra, it's not really needed for camping, so I could have taken it or left it really. But anyway, all you have to do for this strategy is you would shoot the ice staff in this particular corner area, I guess, just enough so that it hits the zombies on the right hand side, and also reaches quite far to the left so that it can kill the zombies on the left as fast as possible. And you want to make sure that you're only using a 3 charge shot instead of a 6 bullet charge shot in order to conserve ammo as much as you can. And then, because the ice staff makes drops, of course, whenever I got a death machine or insta-kill, I'd be using those at both of the spawns in order to kill as fast as I possibly could, in order to conserve as much ammo as I could. And this meant even in the round 90s, I didn't really have much ammo problems at all, which is insane. And even when I did get a bad drop cycle, for example, it didn't really matter because I could just use my alchem to replenish my ammo whenever it was needed. The only real issue with this strategy is when the Panzer comes in, because if you've seen my Black Ops 2 video, you'll notice that I used the Mark II in order to kill the Panzer, but on the BO3 version I don't have the Mark II anymore. I traded it out for the Thompson, for the Tommy gun even. But anyway, in order to deal with the Panzer, it's even easier on the Black Ops 3 version, because what you'll notice is you'll see him coming down before he's even there, because there'll be fire zombies coming down before he arrives, which means you have enough time to put out a 6 bullet charge shot from the ice staff out on the ground. And pretty much one of these 6 bullet charge shots is able to just take him out. Just like that. If he does kind of persist, what you can do is you can go in this little corner here. For some reason he kind of loses you or something. It's really quite weird. But if you do, you can just go there and shoot a 3 or 6 charge shots, whichever you prefer, and he'll die. It is really that easy to deal with him on Black Ops 3. It's crazy. And so with no problems from the Panzer and a very easy strategy, I got into the 90s at about like 2.5 to 3 hours. In fact, it was actually about 3 hours to around 90. And yeah, I managed to cycle my alchems really well, to the point where on round 98 and 99 I had 1 alchem use, meaning I had no worries about ammo whatsoever. And I managed to get to round 100 in about 3 hours and 44 minutes. And that marked the end of Black Ops 3 for me. That was it. I wouldn't be playing Black Ops 3 anymore until the launch of Black Ops 6. And even then, I might not be playing it for quite some time after, depending on how good Black Ops 6 is. And I've got to say, although Black Ops 3 had a lot of maps, and it was a very long time, I had a blast playing all of these maps for the most part. It was really enjoyable. And I can definitely see why the community marks Black Ops 3 as the best overall zombies experience. It's just been really fun. But with Black Ops 3 done, I would be starting off on Zombies in Spaceland at 291 hours, 1 minute and 53 seconds across the 32 different maps I had gotten to round 100 on. And this meant that at the moment, with the amount of maps I'd completed and the amount of time it has taken me so far, it was taking me on average 9 hours to complete every single map, including fails, which overall isn't that bad.
But I just want to say, for those of you who have stuck around for this long, thank you so much for watching this video. These videos, once again, take me so long to make, as well as Lizard to edit. So be sure to check out Lizard. His link is going to be in the description below, as well as mine to my Twitch if you want to catch me playing any zombies. But yeah, thank you all again for watching. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, or even just my round 100 runs in full. They're all going to be on my channel in a link in the description. But other than that, have a good one, boys. I'll see you later.